Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, on Israel's expansion of the war regionally. Then Professor Paul Ortiz, Professor of History at the University of Florida, on unions' power to fight right-wing authoritarians. Also on the program today, over 100 killed in an attack on Iranian Commander Soleimani's memorial. Unclear who is responsible for that bombing. This as Israel's drone strike kills a Hamas leader in Beirut. Bernie Sanders calls on Congress to block additional funding for Israel. And the feds add a superseding corruption indictment against still sitting Senator Menendez. Republicans' leadership in the House consolidate around Trump. Meanwhile, Congressman Bill Johnson's resignation means the Republicans' majority very, very increasingly tenuous. But that thin majority has finally initiated, has formally initiated impeachment proceedings, not just against Biden, but also against Homeland Security Chief Mayorkas.
That's Marjorie Taylor Greene's pet project.
There you go. I better hope that they don't lose 2 votes. Texas Federal Appeals Court rules that doctors are no longer obligated to perform emergency abortions.
Fifth Circuit, huh?
For women, yes.
Of course.
Lastly, Harvard president resigns amid plagiarism allegations and right-wing attacks. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is... Oh, wow.
It's Hump Day.
Yeah, I'm completely flummoxed by that.
I know.
Because I thought it was Tuesday again.
It's been throwing us off. Yeah, don't show up tomorrow.
I also said, I nailed it with 2024, but I realized that I've been doing my little chat things as 2023.
Ah, okay.
And that's what tricked me up there.
Still in 2023 on all your chats.
Exactly. Although I did it right there. Okay.
Well, you got it right on the show. That's all that matters.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. We got a lot to get to today. We will, of course, be talking about the latest indications that there is at least an attempt by Israel to expand their assault on Gaza and essentially widen this war to pursue the aspirations they've had for a war with Iran that has existed for at least a couple of decades.
Yeah, and they've already bombed Syria and Lebanon at this point through in a strike. And one of the Christmas attack in Syria was to go after an Iranian general, which I feel like got buried. the idea that a sovereign nation can just do that and there not be any recourse is jaw-dropping to me. But I mean, they killed supposedly that Hamas official in Lebanon. It's just incredible that we've normalized the fact that a country like Israel can just bomb another nation via drones, and that's perfectly okay, even though under international law that's obviously a provocation.
We will get to that in a moment, and obviously with Trita Parsi. In the meantime, the feds have released a superseding indictment. In other words, basically they've updated the existing indictment that they had issued against Bob Menendez, senator from New Jersey. You'll recall he already had one corruption trial that he managed to squeak through, I guess, years ago. This is a second superseding indictment of the 70-year-old Democratic senator, along with his wife, Nadine. The couple that corrupts together stays together, I guess.
Shared interests.
They were already charged with 4 counts of bribery, fraud, and acting as an unregistered foreign agent. This new one, and we should say that he and Nadine Menendez have pled not guilty to the other charges. The new indictment is centered around, and you remember the first one was providing material benefit for Egypt and Egyptian interests. This is essentially, if I understand it, introducing a developer, a real estate developer, to the Qatari royal family, providing some benefit for Qatar in terms of like public statements, et cetera, hooking up this guy, Dabes, I think is his name is pronounced. While the company was considering the investment, this is Dabes sold a major stake in an Edgewater development project for $45 million to Heritage Advisors of London, which was founded by Sheikh Sultan bin Jassim Al Thani from Qatar. So the idea is they're looking for a purchase. This developer's got this big thing. He wants somebody to buy into it. While the company was considering the investment, this is according to Politico, Menendez made multiple public statements supporting the government of Qatar and provided them to Dabes to share with the Qatari investor and government official from the country. In other words, I'm making these public statements. I'm going to send them to you so that you can show them to the Qataris to basically say, like, look what I'm doing for you. And in fact, Menendez allegedly messaged Dabes on an encrypted app before putting out a pro-Qatari statement you might want to send to them. I'm just about to release. Now, of course, you send this on an encrypted app because you don't want anybody to know that you've got a public statement.
Yeah, so
Very odd. And then several days after attending a private event in Manhattan hosted by the Qatari government, Dabes allegedly messaged Menendez photos of wristwatches with prices ranging from $9,900 to $23,900, asking, how about one of these?
For me, obviously. I'm asking for fashion advice from you, Bob.
Which one do you think was going to suit me better?
What will it compliment my eyes?
In January of 2022, as Dabes was about to meet the Qatari investor in London, Menendez allegedly texted both of them, greetings. I understand my friend is going to visit you on the 15th of the month. I hope this will result in the favorable and mutual beneficial agreement that you have both engaged in discussing. And then that May, according to the indictment, the Qatari company signed a letter of intent to enter a joint venture with Dabes, and thereafter, Dabes provided Menendez with at least, you ready for this? Come on, what does Menendez love?
He loves gold bars. There we go.
With a gold bar. Somehow all these people loan him gold bars.
He's a collector.
May you have
it's a collector's
friends
item.
who will give you as many gold bars as Menendez has gotten.
You got
from
baseball
his friends.
cards, you get gold bars. People just have different interests.
And This is, I'll continue to read some of the stuff from the indictment, but first, we should see how this was reported on MSNBC. This is perhaps one of the more awkward things that one is going to see. Now, I will also say this. You remember when Chris Cuomo was on CNN, and he was actually behind the scenes working on helping his brother, Andrew Cuomo, in fighting all of the charges about how Andrew Cuomo screwed up, not just in terms of like COVID, but also with his inappropriateness, boundaries around
the allegations against him,
women that Andrew Cuomo come in. This, I mean, I guess live by the sword, die by the sword in a way. Here is
Alicia Menendez.
Alicia Menendez, just coincidentally, daughter of Bob Menendez, and on MSNBC. She was filling in for
Nicole Wallace,
who's on at like 5 p.m. Is that right?
Must be. This was at 5:55 Eastern.
Okay, and Ari Melber follows up. Ari Melber is is also their legal correspondent. His show starts at 6. 5:55 is a little bit early to throw to Melber, but this happened.
Thank you so much for your expertise and for spending some time with us. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back with some breaking news right after this.
Hello, I'm Ari Melber with some breaking legal news. New Jersey United States Senator Robert Menendez now facing new allegations in a second superseding indictment that was filed by a federal grand jury from his DOJ prosecution. Those prosecutors there at the Justice Department now allege Menendez received gifts not only for allegedly helping the government of Egypt, but also for helping a developer, Fred Davies, get a multi-million-dollar investment from a company with ties to the government of Qatar.
There you go. And that's at 4:55, and I saw the little thing there, so it wasn't quite his show yet. He was just coming in at the end. I mean,
4:55 Central Time, so yeah.
It is, and to be fair, look, that's how they should handle it. Yeah. She should not be covering it, but awkward.
But maybe, I don't know, like, look, people get to do what they want, and if you're talented enough, you can be the daughter of a senator and still be a host on cable news. But I just think it's a little odd. I think it's a little bit odd that MSNBC chooses to make these kinds of hires, right? Like, it's either somebody who has whether it's Chris Cuomo, I know that's on CNN or formerly, and her on MSNBC. We don't need to hire these folks.
Abby Huntsman.
Yeah.
Chelsea Clinton.
Who else is also like the Today Show host is Jenna Bush. So, I mean, just you don't need to do it, cable host, but apparently they do. And then their other pastime is just hiring former Republicans who then decide to be hosts on the supposedly liberal.
And just one more detail from the Menendez superseding indictment. As I said, after the Qatari company signed a letter of intent to enter a joint venture with Davies, thereafter, this is reading from the indictment, thereafter Davies provide Menendez with at least one gold bar. And then 3 days later, following a dinner with Davies, Menendez allegedly Googled, quote, 1 kilo gold price.
That's the second detail of this where I'm like, I would expect an experienced crime viewer to know, A, don't trust the encrypted apps to actually be encrypted from investigators, and also don't Google your crimes.
But this is the thing. When he didn't get locked up for that first corruption case, this is what crooks, when actual crooks, when they see that happen to themselves, they think I can get away with anything. And that's the lesson clearly that Menendez took. I mean, he thinks he can still get away with running for re-election when, I mean, he's getting outraised and the polls in New Jersey clearly want him out, obviously.
Well, that could be just he's looking for leverage. Once all of the indictments are in, maybe he goes like, what if I resign?
Yeah.
Do I have to go to...
Keep white-knuckling Menendez. It's a great look for you.
Folks... I want you to think of some of the perfect duos that we've been talking about. Like, for instance, Menendez and gold bars.
Right.
Or Menendez in jail. Gold bars in jail. No, but the perfect duo when it comes to growing your business, well, that's you and Shopify. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business, from launch your online shop stage to the first real life store stage, all the way to, did we just hit 1 million orders stage? Shopify is there to help you grow. And that's the amazing thing about Shopify. It doesn't matter if you're selling soap or outdoor outfits or, I don't know, Majority Report merchandise. Shopify helps you sell everywhere. They have their all-in-one e-commerce platform, then their in-person point of sale system. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify has got you covered, and it is all integrated. Shopify helps you turn browsers into buyers with internet's best converting checkout, 36% better on average compared to other leading commerce platforms. I can't tell you how many times I have gone to sites, tried to buy something, and I'm like, I can't figure this out. Well, maybe that's just me.
Right.
These are your potential customers, folks. You will sell more with less effort thanks to Shopify Magic. It's your AI-powered all-star. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the United States. Shopify is the global force behind Allbirds, Rothy's, and again, the Majority Report merch store.
Yes.
And millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way, because businesses that grow with Shopify. I mean, for me, the easiest thing, the best thing about Shopify is just that it was very easy to do. I don't know if the Majority Report merchandise is going to, expand beyond this. But if it were Shopify, I could still be using Shopify no matter how huge I got. We do live shows. We can integrate those sales with the sales that we have on our Shopify site. And you can also integrate Shopify into all of the big social media platforms. If you want to take your business to the next level, Shopify gives you everything you need to take control and do so. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/majority. All lowercase. Go to shopify.com/majority now to grow your business no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/majority. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, on not only how Joe Biden's support for Israel is undercutting Joe Biden's chances to become for the presidency in 2024, but now how Joe Biden's unfettered support for Israel may embolden them to regionalize this war. We'll be right back. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. I want to welcome back to the program Trita Parsi. He is the Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Trita, the last time we spoke, it was about 2 or 3 months ago. I guess it was maybe just in the days following October 7th. And I don't remember exactly how we titled it, but we talked about, I know that we spoke about the threat of this war going regional. And when we booked you, we were going to talk about, both that happening, but also, pieces you wrote about the implications of Biden's, really unfettered support for the most excessive response by the Israelis possible, it seems to me, and how that's going to implicate his reelection, what it means for our democracy. But over the past 36 hours, maybe it's been 48 hours, there's been developments that suggest that we should start with the regionalizing of this war. Why don't you give us this timeline of what has happened? And it seems to me it started with the announcement that the Israelis were going to pull back. I think it was 5 brigades from Gaza for unclear reasons.
Yes, that did happen. But I think we have to go back perhaps another 10 days or so. We saw the assassination of an Iranian general in Damascus, in Syria. We had the assassination of a senior Hamas leader in Beirut just about 36 hours ago. There is this massive explosion. The Iranians call it a terrorist attack taking place in the city of Kerman in Iran today that has left more than 100 dead. We do not know if this is linked or not. The timing, of course, is suspicious. There are other potential culprits for attacks of this kind have happened before in Iran. But this is the deadliest terrorist attack in Iran's modern history. All of these different things, and again, potentially excluding the latest one, what happened in Kerman, nevertheless seems to suggest that the Israelis are starting to act on what they wanted to do apparently from the beginning, which is to expand the war to go into Lebanon as well. The Biden administration credits themselves of having talked the Israelis out of it immediately after October 7th. And as of recent, we have heard more and more concern from the Biden administration that the Israelis may be looking for a pretext to expand the war. I think we're seeing it quite clearly because the likelihood of these attacks having been done either to provoke a response from Hezbollah or from the IRGC in Syria, or to actually lay the preparation for a broadening of the war, I think starts to become increasingly clear. Why would the Israelis want this, though? I mean, this is the logical question. I personally did not believe that the Israelis wanted a widened war in the early days of the war, thinking that it would be too difficult for them to handle 2 fronts at the same time. But I think something has changed in Israel since the October 7th attacks. The Israeli calculation essentially was that they could manage living next to Hamas and what they perceived as the threat from Hamas, of course. And, they had the strategy of what they call mowing the lawn, bombing Gaza every 2 years or so. They did not expect that there could be such an attack from Hamas, and there was. And now they extrapolated that into Lebanon and saying, how could Israel possibly calculate that it could manage living next to Hezbollah, which is much more powerful than Hamas is? This is simply unacceptable, the argument goes, just as much as Hamas needs to be eliminated from Gaza in order for Israel to be safe. Hezbollah also has to be eliminated, at least from the southern parts of Lebanon, in order for Israel to be safe. And then essentially saying they have no choice but to expand the war. Then you add another dimension to which goes exactly to what you said earlier on. This has been the most deferential president in the United States to an Israeli war effort that we've seen in a very, very long time. And as a result, perhaps there is a perception on the Israeli side that, yes, the United States doesn't want an expansion of the war. The Biden administration has pushed back against it. But if Israel manages to provoke an attack from IRGC or from Lebanon onto Israel, then the Biden administration will fall into line just as it did after the Hamas attack and end up supporting Israel's expansion of the war into Lebanese territory.
I want to circle back to that dynamic in a moment, but can you just give us a brief rundown of exactly and to be honest, I haven't, I don't know that I've even contemplated this in a decade, but who runs Lebanon? What is there even a Lebanese government per se? I know there is no sort of one formal, prime minister, but what is the dynamic in Lebanon, and what are the implications of an assassination of a Hamas leader in Beirut? Like, how would that provoke Hezbollah? To what extent would it provoke Hezbollah? Like, what are the dynamics there? But first, give us that sort of like overlay of Lebanon, if you would.
So Lebanon has been in both an economic and political crisis for quite some time now, and not been able to come to a consensus on a political leadership, particularly specific leadership positions. And the country has been deadlocked. There was a bit of a hope that after the Saudi-Iranian normalization, that would actually help unbreak some of the deadlock in Lebanon politically. So what has remained true, though, is that Hezbollah is one of the, if not the most powerful thing in Lebanon. But Hezbollah is also an organization that is working very hard to prove that it is a Lebanese organization and not just an Iranian proxy in the eyes of many Lebanese who do see it as just an extension of Iran. So Nasrallah's red line that he put forward only a week or two after the Gaza war broke out was that Hezbollah would not get involved in the war unless there was an attack on Lebanon beyond what is a normal, unfortunately, normal skirmishes that takes place between Israel and Lebanon. And the question is, will Hezbollah define this latest attack, which goes into Beirut, we're not talking about a border skirmish here, as a breach of that red line? Will it view it as a breach of Lebanese sovereignty and as a result necessitate a Lebanese response? Does it see it as an attack on Hamas and as a result believe that it is Hamas's responsibility to respond? It's not entirely clear. But the statement that Hezbollah issued yesterday seemed to indicate that as much as it sees it as an attack on Lebanon, as much as it sees that it as some form of response is necessary and inevitable, the last lines of the statement talked about patience and that more glorious days will follow, which seems to indicate that Hezbollah is sticking to the long game that it and Iran is playing vis-a-vis Israel, which is they don't want an open warfare because it's too costly to them. It's a trap in their view that Israel wants because Israel is the one that would benefit from open warfare. Iran and Hezbollah would not. Whether they can sustain that approach, the discipline that requires to have that approach remains to be seen. I fear that we're getting closer and closer and closer to the moment in which there will be some form of response that will spark a much larger.
Yeah, I mean, you can go ahead, Sam.
Well, is the fact that they, I mean, because Hezbollah has a much, like, as far as I understand it, somewhere between 2 and 3 times the size of fighting force that Hamas is. It has more sophisticated weaponry than Hamas does. It is from the perspective of Hezbollah, are they thinking like right now is peak, sort of like Israel has peak leverage over the United States? Because it seems to me if Hezbollah was to go in and have any type of like beyond the more banal skirmish on the border that they occasionally trade rocket fire, but if there was something more extensive in terms of response, based upon Joe Biden's logic that he has used in terms of basically saying to the Israelis, you know, don't do this, don't do that, but here's the money to do it, here's the weaponry to do it. There's no way that Joe Biden could be consistent in the event that Hezbollah launched an attack on Israel of any magnitude, consistent by saying, don't do this. And in fact, the U.S. would probably have to be even in a greater supportive role in that attack. I mean, is that essentially the dynamic?
I believe so. I think that once there is a much more significant exchange of fire between Israel and Lebanon, the U.S. will be forced, or Biden will choose to go step in support of Israel. That doesn't necessarily mean, however, that the United States is going to be actively involved in the war itself through that arena. But because of other dynamics in the region, we now have plenty of attacks by Iraqi and Syrian militias against US troops. We have attacks in the Red Sea by the Houthis. You add those dimensions to it, and then the US itself gets directly attacked with American casualties. Then you're looking at a scenario in which the United States very likely would get dragged into the war in a much more comprehensive way, not just supporting Israel, but actually actively in the fighting. The US itself has made it very clear that it will strike lethally. It already has against attacks by these Iraqi militias. But I think if we take a look at the history of this, it's quite interesting. Between January 2021 and March 2023, there were about 80 attacks by Iraqi and Syrian militias against US troops. Between October 7th and today, there's been more than 100 just in 10, 11 months. The only 6 days during this period in which there weren't any attacks was when there was a ceasefire in Gaza. The day before the ceasefire, there were 6 attacks on US troops. I think we see a very clear picture. If there is a ceasefire, you will have an end to the attacks by the Iraqi militias. You will likely have a significant reduction of Houthi attacks. In fact, there was a significant reduction of Houthi attacks against ships in the Red Sea during the ceasefire. You will probably also have a calming down of the border between Israel and Lebanon, and most likely no response by the Iranians to any attack that the Israelis may or may not have. So it seems to me that the most obvious way of actually getting a de-escalation and making sure that the United States does not get dragged into this war is the one way that the Biden administration is most adamant about not pursuing, and that's a ceasefire.
Yes, and so to bring it back to this attack that we do not know the origins of in Iran, 5 days ago, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett took out an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal, which has been very pro-Israel, I would say, and it's just conventional reporting, and then of course in its right-wing opinion pages. But Naftali Bennett is one of the 2 top options considered if an election were to be called, which Netanyahu is aggressively trying to avoid, to replace Netanyahu as prime minister in that time. 5 days before he took out this opinion piece, and then we're seeing the attack, or I guess that was on Christmas, the assassination of the Iranian general by Israel, and then whatever the origins of this bombing are, we don't necessarily know. But to your point about how the Israeli government wants to basically move towards potentially that broader regional conflict with Iran, and they want there to be provocation, is it your assessment that there is a drive within the Israeli government to continue to tie, when they fight with Hezbollah or when they speak about the Houthis and their alignment with Iran and their rocket attacks into Israel, to continue to bring it back to Iran, to convince U.S. neocons, essentially, that this is necessary, that we need to bring us into a larger war? And then what is Iran's response to that?
I think you're absolutely right. Yes, there is that desire. There's also some truth in it. Iran is arming Hamas. It has armed and trained the Houthis. It is definitely behind Hezbollah. So there is a constellation there. The issue where it gets a little bit dicey is when the Israelis claim that they have evidence that Iran had a hand, for instance, in a specific attack, although they didn't say that about the attacks on Hamas, by Hamas at first. But because that's different if they were actively involved. But there's no doubt that the Iranians have been supporting these different groups. But it comes to a larger question here, which is, from the Israeli standpoint, there's been an effort for more than 20 years now to get the United States to attack Iran, viewing an attack on Iran by the Israelis as necessary, by the United States as necessary in order to be able to shift the balance of power back into Israel's favor, really cut down Iran in size several notches, eliminate much of its network, and create a military balance that is much more favorable to Israel. This has been going on for 20 years. Again and again, the Israelis have pushed it. Again and again, American presidents have pushed back. Even Bush pushed back. Obama, of course, pushed back. It's actually very funny. Even Trump pushed back initially and said, well, if you want to have war with Iran, you should go ahead and do it yourself, but keep the United States out of it. The only time you actually saw that Trump was more open to Netanyahu's pressure for attacking Iran was after the elections, when Trump thought that the only way that he could overturn the elections was starting a war. So we see very clearly Trump favors war when he thinks that it benefits him politically, not for other reasons. But so you have this history. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just mean that this was also on the 4th anniversary of the assassination of Soleimani, which was one of Trump's first acts. So you can see that there are folks within, the Pentagon and in the government here that are influential, that are going to be sympathetic to these kinds of claims.
Certainly. And again, it goes back to show that, look, there's been this effort by the Israelis for 20 plus years. They may calculate now that they have the best opportunity yet to be able to bring in the United States into such a war, to take Iran from their perspective in a manner that Israel itself cannot do, because the degree to which Biden has been bear-hugging Netanyahu and have been so deferential to Netanyahu. I don't think Netanyahu has ever experienced a president that under these circumstances has been so deferential to Israel.
On that point, I was under the impression early on when we saw Dick Durbin come out and call for a ceasefire and sort of shuffle back a little bit. But I think it was Murphy that came out with not quite ceasefire language, but this was like, 2 weeks into, maybe even less, into Israel's bombing of Gaza. I had interpreted that, and I was completely wrong, that this was trying to give Biden space, some oxygen, some political room to start to sort of publicly call for a ceasefire. That was not the case whatsoever. In fact, Durbin seemed like he was just hung out to dry there and sort of shuffled off. Is there, do you have a sense? Because it really does feel like this is this is like, I don't know, Joe Biden to trains in terms of like his deep commitment to whatever Israel does, because we are so far beyond what is in the U.S. national security interest at this point. I just think that it's inarguable that this is something that is like he has some deep emotional resonance with for whatever reason. Do you have a sense from anybody you've talked with within the administration, around the administration, that there is a red line for him? It clearly is not in terms of a humanitarian line regarding the Palestinians, but from a national security line. Like, because there are two things that occur to me in this regard. One, the U.S. is sending some top intelligence leader to go out with no evidence, saying that despite what the Washington Post report was, that the Al-Shifa hospital was in fact a command center. My next question is, how do we have that intelligence if the Israelis couldn't even present it? That opens up to, but putting that aside, regardless of whether I believe that or not, one of the mystifying things about Biden in his foreign policy was his failure to re-up the nuclear deal with Iran. I think we've spoken about this in the past, that it was almost mystifying. And what was then appears to me as a sort of bumbling failure or now looks like there may have been more intent associated with not signing that. Like that there were, the roadblocks came more from Biden himself than anything else. I wonder just if you could respond to that and get a sense of like, just how far is Biden willing to risk U.S. national security at this point in this, what seems to me like even beyond ideological compulsion to support whatever Israel does?
I think this is the most important question. You're asking what is the red line? And I think the terrifying answer is there may not be a red line. The red lines that exist are the red lines in which Biden would escalate further and actually drag the U.S. into the war, in the sense of there's attack against U.S. troops, etc., instead of thinking of whether those troops should be there in the first place. Or is it wise for us to put American soldiers in the lines of fire when we actually don't have an interest and a stake in this? I think one of the mistakes a lot of people, myself included, committed early on was believing that Biden wanted a ceasefire, but either wasn't really willing to pay the political cost for it, or was looking for additional leverage before he pushed for it, or that he was waiting to give the Israelis a couple of weeks before he pushed for it. I think at this point it's clear that was not the issue. Biden signed on to Israel's maximalist military objectives of eliminating Hamas from Gaza. He wanted to see Israel do to Hamas what the United States could not do to the Taliban. And as a result, I think that is a key reason as to why he has been so adamantly opposed to a ceasefire, because he is in agreement with the Israeli objective. An objective, incidentally, that many, and I would perhaps say most analysts believe is not achievable, including, incidentally, the former Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, who said this very clearly in the very first sentence of his op-ed in the Haaretz about a week or so ago, that there is a nil chance of achieving this narrative. So we have that situation in which he's just bought into this plan, and as a result,
can I add,
along with it.
Forgive me interrupting, but it's not just Olmert, but I think Secretary of Defense Austin said the same thing a month ago, that it's arguable as to whether you can actually materially achieve this just on in terms of just sheer numbers, but that it's quite clear you will lose the war even if you win the battle against Hamas. I mean,
we had experienced this. We won militarily wars and lost the peace and lost everything else, including standing and credibility. We've done that for more than 20 years in the Middle East right now. So we, more than anyone else, should be able to tell the Israelis that this is not a path that is likely to lead to success. In fact, it's almost certain to lead to some form of a failure. But you also asked another question there, Sam, that I think is very important, which is, what is he risking here? Not only war. I would go further. I mean, obviously, it's tremendously concerning that he is, in my view, very nonchalant about the escalation risk, and is not stopping this in a manner that he could by going for a ceasefire. But according to the Biden administration and the Democratic Party themselves, they say that the elections next year, or this year now, is about the survival of American democracy, because a return of Trump, in their assessment, could very well spell the death of American democracy. Well, taking a look at the polls and seeing how Biden is destroying his winning coalition from 2020 through this war, and it's not just Arab Americans, it's Gen Z, it's Latinos, it's African Americans, then he's not just risking war, he's not just risking the elections. According to his own statements, he's risking American democracy. And the question is, for what? What is the American interest in continued warfare in Gaza that is so valuable that we're willing to risk all of these things?
Where does Saudi Arabia stand in this, given, the fact that the reports that you mentioned earlier about the Iran-backed Houthis, sending over rockets and, that kind of proxy battle being a little bit in the background between Saudi Arabia and Iran? I mean, it seems domestically like Saudi Arabia would have a very difficult time selling this to the public, but they are run by a king, so.
Certainly. I think the Saudis are keeping a very low profile on this. I think MBS would probably very much like to go back to normalization, potentially blaming Hamas for all of this and saying that Hamas's actions have led to a scenario in which the Saudis no longer have a choice but to give up on the Palestinian cause. I don't think, however, that is feasible. The latest polls that were done, incidentally published by the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, showed a tremendous increase in support for Hamas, a tremendous opposition, not just to Saudi Arabia normalizing relations with Israel, but also other Arab countries normalizing relations with Israel. So I think it's somewhat delusional, frankly, to hear the administration still talking about normalization between Saudi Arabia and Israel as if it is something that is realistic at this moment, given everything that is going on, and given the fact that it appears that this conflict is going to continue for quite some time, because again, the one entity that really could put an end to it, the United States, is unwilling to do so. And just on that point, I think it's quite fascinating to see how Israelis openly talk about how they could not continue this war had it not been for the very generous support that Biden has given Israel in terms of military material. More than 10,000 tons of military equipment, weapons, and artillery has been sent to Israel since October 7th. And according to a former Israeli major general, it is impossible for Israel to continue this war if these shipments were discontinued. So the United States has tremendous amount of leverage. But again, Biden doesn't want to use it because I think he is bought into and aligned with the objective that Netanyahu has put forward.
Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. Thanks so much for your time today. We'll put a link to what you've been tweeting and what you've been writing as of late at majority.fm and our podcast and YouTube descriptions. Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hopefully we can do this again soon, and we can talk about this in retrospect, but I'm afraid it may not be the case for quite some time.
Let's hope so.
Yep. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Paul Ortiz, professor of history at the University of Florida, who is also a member of a Florida union that has been fighting Ron DeSantis. And he has some thoughts on how unions and wokeism are not antithetical to each other. We'll be right back after this. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Want to welcome to the program Paul Ortiz. He's a professor of history at the University of Florida and a member of the United Faculty of Florida, which is is parented by the Florida Education Association. Paul, before we get into sort of your experience as a union member, and particularly one of a cohort of not just being a union member, but also in terms of your profession under a direct assault by Ron DeSantis and sort of a Republican juggernaut in Florida. Tell us a little bit about the United Faculty of Florida and the FEA.
Yeah. So the United Faculty of Florida first organized, we first really unionized as higher ed faculty in Florida in the early 1970s in response to decades of attacks on professors and teachers. You know, we had professors in Florida who were fired because they publicly criticized Robert E. Lee, because they publicly criticized Warren G. Harding. Remember him? He was president back in the 1920s. And for things like supporting the civil rights movement or for being lesbian, gay, or bisexual. And so that's why we originally unionized. So right now, the state of Florida, all of our universities are unionized among the faculty. We have a statewide union, and then we each university or college has its local chapter. So I was the chapter president of the University of Florida chapter of the United Faculty of Florida, and we're a part of the Florida Education Association. So the Florida Education Association is that K through 12 teachers union. They have locals in every single county in the state, all 67 counties, and we're the higher ed part of that union, educators union.
Has there been a time, I mean, you mentioned the 70s and LGBTQ rights, and all I can think of is Anita Bryant, but I don't know if she was actually in Florida as much as she was like just associated with the oranges. But has there been a time in your memory and in the history of the union where the union has been under this type of assault, both from a hostility towards unions, but also in particular towards teaching at universities? I mean, this is the guy who started the critical race theory scare hoax, essentially. Chris Rufo is now a college president of a public institution in Florida, essentially placed there to be the model of rooting out, I don't know, liberals, people who talk about wokeism or what they call wokeism, really as a sort of like a centerpiece of Ron DeSantis's now failed campaign. But put this in context to us in terms of what you're going through down there.
We are, we're educators in the Deep South, and the attacks on the rights of our students to learn, to major in whatever topics they want to major in, to study Black history, to study gender studies, labor history. In fact, I mean, those have always been under assault more or less, but the intensity of the assaults kind of ebb and flow. And you're absolutely right. We're under unprecedented attacks. You may have heard that during the last legislative session, the first iteration of HB 999 actually carried a prohibition or a banning of gender studies. And so if you went back a couple months earlier, of course, Florida became notorious because the state banned the AP African American Studies curriculum and really wanted to do more. Obviously, that's just a stepping stone. They came up with the Don't Say Gay bill, and that was just a stepping stone. As everyone knows, it's gotten worse and worse and worse. Book banning has gotten worse. A lot of my former students have become teachers, or I should say used to be teachers in South Florida. They've all left. They've either quit the teaching profession or now they teach in other states because they were increasingly not allowed to teach controversial subjects like Black history, like Holocaust studies, like women's history, like LGBT studies. And so they're gone. And so higher education, the unions are really the last force holding the line to defend our students' rights to learn whatever they want to learn in college, whatever they feel they want to major in. We had to use our collective bargaining contract to actually save gender studies in higher education, because we told our universities, look, you can't just ban gender studies because we have a collective bargaining contract that has academic freedom articles, and it has also very strict articles about how you can change the terms of employment in our jobs. And so this is why the state has retaliated against us and has ramped things up and is really trying to decertify our public education unions, because they realize that we're the last kind of statewide force opposing this really increasingly fascist attack on the right to learn.
I want to expand more on this, because we've seen, I think, really since the 2011 or I should say more so, since the 2011 Chicago teachers strike, unions adopting a social justice model of unionization or reviving one, I should say, as opposed to, the more managerial one. And it tends to happen, as I've said this before, amongst teachers and nurses first, because of their relationships with their clients, essentially, if you will, and they have a an immediate relationship with the community. And so fighting for community issues becomes sort of more integrated into the agenda of the unions. But talk about that, because very often we'll hear the idea of unionism and labor and working class people is that somehow, having a social justice agenda is somehow antithetical to fighting for working class people. And I'd like your take on that.
Yeah. I think that's really astute analysis. I mean, I grew up in the working class. I've been a union member most of my entire adult life. And I think even taking things a step back, I think in the 80s and 90s, the labor movement got away from our roots. And what I mean by this is that in some cases, we did become disconnected from communities. And we kind of pulled in the fences. There was the Reagan era. Everyone knows that was tough on unions. We became very defensive. You mentioned the Chicago teachers strike was a model for many of us because it reminded us that, as teachers, as faculty members, as staff members of colleges and universities, we are part of the community. And one example would be that for our faculty union, we have never argued that academic freedom is just an issue for professors. We've never argued that we're only talking about things like tenure and our rights in the workplace. Our argument has always been that you have to have, if you want to have any community whatsoever in a democratic polity, you have to have intellectual freedom. If you don't have intellectual freedom, you don't have anything else. And so and that's how we've gotten so much support, is really relying on the community and being there for the community. And so my union, for example, whenever there's a push for affordable housing, we're there. Whenever there's a push for raising the minimum wage for all workers, we're there. Whenever there's a push for improving any, kind of healthcare systems where we are, we're there. And we should be there. And we never should leave those things. And so those are the types of social justice commitments we have. They're less ideological and more because we are part of the communities that sustain our campuses and schools.
Can you talk a bit about what some of your colleagues and members of your union have gone through over the past few years, particularly if they identify as LGBTQ, what the environment has been like in Florida, given the, conversation about groomers and how the right-wing government, or the DeSantis administration, among others, have tried to target really LGBTQ educators in the state?
Yeah, thank you. It's an excellent question. It's been really depressing. It's been devastating. When I was the union president for our chapter, I'm still an officer, but I was a president for 3 years. The attacks on our LGBT faculty, attacks on Chinese and Chinese American faculty, especially after the election of Donald Trump, to talk with my Chinese colleagues here in Florida, actually many of whom have left the state. And they would talk to me not only about being harassed in their colleges and university settings, but they would talk about their children on the playgrounds being harassed by other children because they heard these terrible, and one of them even challenged me. And she said, Paul, when was the last time you ever saw a positive article or media thing about China in the newspaper? It's always negative. It had a really devastating impact. I think that what's depressing for me in terms of thinking about, how do we maintain intellectual freedom in the United States is, I get emails, I get texts from colleagues, especially assistant professors, graduate students who say, Professor Ortiz, I was going to assign Toni Morrison, a book by Toni Morrison, like say Beloved. I was going to assign an article by Kimberly Crenshaw, one of the great law professors of our time. But I know the state is looking especially stringently at Black women scholars. And maybe I won't be able to assign that this semester because I'm afraid, I'm not tenured, I don't have job security. And so there's a constant fear of harassment. And there's what I would call, or what we call here, a lot of anticipatory obedience. And so the state doesn't even have to pass a law saying, oh, you can't read Toni Morrison's Beloved. But guess what? Many school districts have pulled that book off the shelf in anticipation and of fear. And I mentioned earlier that some of my former students who used to teach in Miami-Dade or Broward, who just stopped teaching about controversial topics like the Holocaust during World War II. They stopped teaching about Native American history because it takes one parent now to complain, and the parent doesn't even have to have a child in that class. They just have to find out that that topic is being taught in a way that they don't appreciate. And so the principals and school districts no longer back up the teachers the way that our administrators in higher ed no longer back up the faculty. That's why the unions have become so very vitally important.
And you guys have a record of even going beyond that, those defensive measures and trying to provide that space. My understanding is in the wake of Charlottesville, your union also organized against Richard Spencer coming into, I guess it was it Gainesville? Tell us about that.
Thank you for reminding me, because I think that mobilization is really a part of the crisis that we're in now. And so Richard Spencer is a neo-Nazi, as some of your viewers may know. He's a person who advocates ethnic cleansing, which is de facto genocide. You can't have ethnic cleansing in the modern world without using violence. And so he has followers and people who aren't necessarily members of his organization, but people that were following him on these college tours. And so during Charlottesville, many of us remember the violence that took place there, the Spencer followers with their tiki torches marching through residential neighborhoods in Charlottesville, chanting "Jews will not replace us," and other hateful anti-Semitic and racist chants. So in Gainesville, we decided we weren't going to put up with that. And so the union really mobilized in advance. We sponsored and co-sponsored teach-ins to try to bring into focus intersectionality. And this is another thing that the state of Florida hates for us to talk about. That's a code term that they hate. But we use it to talk about the connections between anti-Semitism, racism, homophobia, and many forms of oppression that Richard Spencer was supporting. And so we actually were able to, as a union, to be part of this great alliance of Jewish students, Muslim students, Christians, atheists, you name it. It was kind of it was a great Heinz 57 kind of coalition. And we're very proud of the fact that we retired Richard Spencer about a week or so after his failed trip to Gainesville, and none of his followers came marching through our neighborhoods with tiki torches, because we told them in advance, you're not going to do that. And again, it gets back to what you were saying earlier, the social justice unionism part of our work. We're not just about what happens in the workplace. Do we have collective bargaining contracts? Yes. Do we have a grievance procedure? Yes. And those are very important for us. But equally important was keeping Richard Spencer's fascist followers from marching through our neighborhoods with their torches and assault rifles. So we retired him, and he said, a week or two after, he said, it's just not fun anymore. I'm going to stop doing it. And so we're very proud of that. But again, we faced a lot of retaliation for that. The state of Florida didn't like it. Our administration didn't like it. They wanted us to ignore this man and his minions coming through. But we said, we're not going to ignore it, because our students really wanted us to step up. It's like our students are saying, if you have fascism and it's staring you at the face, what are you going to do? Like, look the other way? And we just can't do that.
Explain to me from, how this sort of embrace of intersectionality, how this strengthens unions and the labor movement. Well,
let me start by talking about why the state doesn't like us talking about intersectionality, because it does exactly that. When I see my interests as connected to yours and to my neighbors, and I begin to understand that unless my neighbor is secure, I'm not very secure. Until I begin to understand that, until my Jewish colleagues feel safe and feel they have a supportive environment, until I understand those things, I'm not really in a safe and supportive environment. And intersectionality is simply understanding the unity of a democratic society. You can't have a democratic society unless all people are free and equal. If you don't have that, then you have an oppressive society. And so on the one level, that's one kind of baseline notion of intersectionality. So if you're talking about workplace discrimination, sure, you can focus on one group because that might be your expertise. Let's just say you focus on, anti-Chinese discrimination in the workplace. Okay, there's a whole literature on that, and it's very important to specialize in that. But unless you understand the connections between that form of discrimination and sexist discrimination in the workplace, and the discrimination against Black workers in the workplace, and the discrimination against all workers, then you're not really getting the whole picture. That's simply the overview of what intersectionality is. The opposite viewpoint is that we're isolated, alienated individuals, that your freedom has nothing to do with my freedom, that we're all just kind of working kind of in a vacuum. And that's what the state of Florida wants us to see now, because that really keeps us disempowered. It keeps us away from each other. An intersectional attitude leads to organizing. It leads to understanding that the state of Florida, or even the United States, doesn't give us rights. We earn those rights, but we can only earn those rights through organizing.
Lastly, is there anything you can tell us that would give us any type of optimism for Florida in any time frame that you choose?
That's a great question. Well, we're holding the line. I think the optimism is that, you mentioned the Richard Spencer thing earlier. When the state passed the ban on AP African American Studies last February, we mobilized statewide. And again, the unions mobilized with the students. We had really wonderful teach-ins, 3-hour teach-ins. Can you imagine college students sitting in a classroom for 3 hours reading and listening to lectures and having fun doing it?
Being the father of a college student, my answer is no. And also having been a college student, my answer is no.
I know. I was so excited. I mean, we have students here in high schools walking out in response to the book banning. And you won't hear a lot about it. You won't see a lot about it because it kind of frankly terrifies adults. But I think that's the optimism, is the younger people, the college, the high school, the middle school students, the parents in Florida are starting to mobilize too. They're starting to really say, okay, well, really, why do you want to ban Kurt Vonnegut's Slaughterhouse-Five? Is it really because there is sex in the book, or is it because the book is anti-war? Because, we've seen that before. So there's a lot of cause for optimism. I think we just have to hold our unions together. And the last thing I'll mention along that is, if you're in a play, if you're watching this now, and it looks like, oh my gosh, Florida is terrible, I'm so glad I don't live there. Don't do that, because it's coming your way. Yep. Because this model of divide and conquer that Ron DeSantis is brilliant at doing. Now, he may have lost his presidential bid, but that ideology of dividing us, of getting me to distrust you, of getting you to distrust me, that's his bread and butter. And that's a politics which unfortunately continues to resonate.
Paul Ortiz, professor of history at the University of Florida. Thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on the Majority Report. It's been a great honor. Thank you,
Paul.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. If you have the wherewithal to become a member, join themajorityreport.com. Join themajorityreport.com. You get the fun half. You get the free half without commercials. But perhaps most importantly, you help this show survive and thrive. Join themajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop. It's a co-op. And it's fair trade coffee. They really operate not just as a co-op in this country. They're out of Madison, Wisconsin, but they also really, really support their suppliers, farmers in Eastern Africa and in Chiapas and maybe other places as well, but I know of those two. And they are very supportive of their suppliers in a way that coffee companies generally are not. Justcoffee.coop. You can pick up the Majority Report blend, and you can get 10% off with the coupon code MAJORITY. Also, don't forget shop.majorityreportradio.com if you want some merch, if you want to be part of the Discord. I should say this. We had a large attack on the website last night. Now, is this a picture of it? No. We had a large attack on the website last night, and it is unclear what it is. Like, I mean, it's possible that hackers go out and just attack vulnerable servers and hoping to find information. My understanding is that we have no sensitive information like that stored anywhere on our servers anyways. But there's also, occasionally, I don't want to draw too much attention to this, but I can tell you that we've had some weird commenters show up in the Discord who didn't really seem to know where they were. But they were there with a specific opinion about our coverage about the Israeli assault on Gaza. I have received strange emails. And people I know have received strange emails. So you never know. But nevertheless, with the support of our members, these type of things, we deal with them. Kyle is a genius, and I don't care who wants to do a denial of service. You're going to lose.
Sorry, it's just we'll have to upload the show notes an hour later.
Exactly. Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like, really? You don't seem to understand how we operate this place.
Great prank, Farva.
Exactly. You don't seem to understand how we operate this place.
Oh no, we're delayed an hour.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Everybody gets to sleep in for an hour. But anyways, you can go to the Discord, which apparently is attracting some attention from weird places. And check it out.
Trying to silence us.
MajorityDiscord.com.
Trying to silence us.
There you go. I did not know. Did you know that Jimmy Dore had Alex Jones on the show?
I did.
At that I didn't.
I considered sending it, to our Slack to see if we wanted to cover it, but I feel like we're at a place where what's the point?
Yeah,
the only point would be, frankly,
called
it.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
I literally said he is our Alex Jones 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
And Alex was like, "Oh, I've been following you for a while. I really appreciate your work."
Well, you remember that video where they met up at, was it like Politicon or something like that?
Oh, this was at Politicon where he spit on him.
No, it was the Republican.
Subsequent to that, they met up. Was it Republican convention or something?
It was. I had just joined TYT as an intern. It was that
Jimmy was
summer.
apologetic about it, being like,
was he?
Yeah, let's water under the bridge. Maybe we can do something in the future.
I don't know. I mean, I think maybe he was at the time. It's interesting. I wonder
Jimmy
what
Dore
that was
defender.
about. Yeah, no, not Jimmy Dore. That was the best thing he's ever did was spit on Alex Jones. To be honest with you.
But I pay people for that anyway.
Yeah.
What an era of online media that was.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Emma.
Hi.
ESPN.
On ESPN yesterday, we had a great episode where we talked about the college football semifinals. It's the last time that they're just going to do that four-team structure, and why
It seemed to not fix all the problems with college football.
It did
that
not.
It was designed to fix.
Well, so next year they're going to do a 12-team playoff format, which will be much better as opposed to the Saints on high picking the 4 best teams. But they need to pay the players. We talked a little bit about that. I'm in love with Michael Penix Jr. I want him to be a Giant. We also spoke about the Ravens, Lamar Jackson being the shoo-in for the MVP, the collapse of the Eagles. Also, David Tepper, new worst owner in professional sports, ? After he was caught throwing a drink on a fan.
What's the point of owning a sports team if you can't throw drinks on the fans?
He was the richest NFL owner until the Walmart clan bought the Denver Broncos. So now he's the second richest. But he's a guy that made a ton, billions and billions through hedge funds. He's a total tempestuous prick. And he's made a bunch of aggressive moves, and his team, the Panthers, are still the worst in the NFL. So he got frustrated and threw a drink on a fan, which pays his bills. So youtube.com/ESPN show.
Matt!
Last night, Emma Vigeland was on Left Reckoning.
Who?
We talked about Gaza. Oh, yeah. Also, I invited her over for us. I gotta put this up.
This is Matt's setup.
This is what we invited Emma on because we like to make our guests feel comfortable before and after the show. So we had
play a little poker with the boys.
And then you see the sushi chef there, and that looks like some premium sushi.
Yeah.
Damn.
And if you look at, I'll go through the reverse angle here 1 second.
If Tim's setup looked like this, I would have hung out. Yeah, I would have hung out. Look at that. Whoa.
Oh my God. You did that through AI.
Yeah, you did.
That AI.
That is amazing. That is amazing. Oh my God.
But yeah, we talked about Gaza.
Only God, no other king. Let the mighty.
And we talk about John Fetterman, who is really talking up his mental health stuff now, which we have been supportive of on this show. Of
Totally.
I like representing people. The problem is when you're doing it. You're doing it for awareness. Okay, you're a senator, sir. You're not, Ted Lasso. And also doing it in a bipartisan way, which is another way of saying we're not going to do anything but this sort of awareness thing. Sam is intrigued.
I honestly, that is just so awesome.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I wanted to get the hell out of there because that's not the kind of company I keep. But if I had seen this kind of setup,
I'm surprised. This is what I was imagining his setup was like. In my
now
mind.
you understand why Tim is so concerned about the coming civil war. Because he needs to protect this.
Exactly.
Oh,
this is like
he's concerned about AI too. Because remember when we had that debate, I asked him.
His compound.
He said the reason that he supports Trump over DeSantis, that's what it was, or was it DeSantis over Trump?
No, because of stuff just like this.
Yes, it was because DeSantis.
Good journalism, Matt.
Used AI.
Why didn't you put this is a artist rendering of a potential Matt Leck compound?
This is hidden camera footage, I guess.
This is what the MSNBC bucks get us.
That's
here.
right. There you go.
Had someone go in there with a camera under their beanie.
Wait, is this your place or is this Tim Pool's place?
Well, I mean,
I thought the joke was it's your place.
No, I'm going over there to
whichever's
hang
funnier
out
in the moment.
after the show. Yeah. You want to entice girls? This is what you got to do.
There you go. Some poker and some skateboarding with the boys.
Sushi and poker with the boys.
Yep.
All right.
I guess he'll never live that down.
Ramona says, "Can you do the rest of the show doing your Alex Jones impressions? I don't think anyone would have complaints." We're gonna take a quick break. Go to. I can't do it right now. I gotta hear him. 646-257-3920. See you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt. What is up, everyone? Nomi Key.
You did it.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon. Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's
Stop talking for a second. Now let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is this?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single frickin' day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm going to go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge met.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1/2 3/8
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this.
You can call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland, the boys.
Boish.
The fun half of the Majority Report.
West Virginia
folks,
sushi.
We will open up the...
Unbelievable.
What would that would be like?
Northern pike.
Tilapia sushi.
Oh my.
Catfish sushi.
There's also like
sushi.
some lake bass and some trout.
Right. Yes, rainbow.
You don't want freshwater sushi. Is probably not the best.
That doesn't sound great. Landlocked sushi, gas station sushi, some things you should avoid.
We will.
Unless it's over poker with some great guys.
We will take your phone calls in a bit. Let's just do this clip. We mentioned yesterday that South Africa filed an indictment with the International Court of Justice against Israel. And Israel has said that they will defend themselves. There are rumors that they're going to have Alan Dershowitz do it.
The charge is genocide, we should say.
Right.
Crimes of genocide. So to have this formalized, I think and for South Africa to have done it, given the past relationship South Africa had before, when it was the apartheid regime, when they were kind of brothers in apartheid, and now for it to be done in this way is historic and notable. But Dershowitz would be hilarious, right?
Well, it would also it would give you a sense of the savvy that the Israelis have about sort of U.S. Politics to the extent that is relevant. I mean, presumably, right? Any type of defense that Israel mounts would be for domestic consumption, Israeli domestic consumption, and then American consumption. I mean, because at this point, it really is. I don't know if Joe Biden can in any way be influenced on this, but certainly, Bernie Sanders, we've seen now, has come out calling for to block the aid to Israel totally. You saw Tim Kaine come out the other day talking about the idea of conditioning aid. Senators and Congress people are far more subject to pressure, and particularly since it seems that Joe Biden has absolutely there is no. I don't know. I mean, it is bizarre to say that a president doesn't seem to be making any type of political calculation, but one thing that resonates with me that Peter Beinart said, and Peter Beinart, to his credit, had written a piece in the run-up to the 2020 election about Joe Biden's relationship with Israel and being like, the uber hawk. But he said you can judge someone's reaction to what's going on in Israel with their reaction essentially to the 1619 project or something like that, more or less.
I said this on Left Reckoning last night. It was about if you believe in the myth of America's like kind of glory, then you're more likely to believe in,
and particularly its founding,
promised land on hostile territory.
Exactly.
Is what he said. Yeah.
And but here is an Israeli spokesperson responding. This is Itamar. This is Ben Gvir. No, sorry, that's not from Ben Gvir. This is an Israeli spokesperson responding to the charges.
Condemns South Africa's decision.
But yeah, if responding to the charges of genocide by South Africa and just says we're getting it slowed down here. I said this before, but it would be very funny if Dershowitz gets tapped and then the Epstein client list comes out right afterwards.
Condemns South Africa's decision to play advocate for the devil and to make itself criminally complicit with the perpetrators of the October 7 massacre. On October 7, South Africa openly aligned itself with the Hamas rapist regime when it blamed Israel for Hamas's violation of the ceasefire and covered up Hamas's crimes against humanity. It is now aiding and abetting that machinery of genocide. Collaborating with the perpetrators of genocide is, alas, not new to South Africa, which backed Omar al-Bashir after he was indicted for genocide in Darfur. While the Hamas rapist regime does everything to maximize civilian casualties with its despicable human shield strategy, Israel is employing measures unprecedented in the history of warfare to minimize civilian casualties. We have been clear in word and in deed that we are targeting the October 7 monsters and are innovating ways to uphold international law, including the principles of proportionality, precaution, and distinction in the context of a counter-terror battlefield no army has faced before. That is why we spent weeks urging residents of northern Gaza to evacuate before the ground offensive.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to remind everybody, because it's so offensive to anyone who has been following any of this. We played a clip of or I think we played the whole thing of the New York Times did a 2 or 3 minute video, which clearly shows that in the wake of encouraging Palestinians to evacuate northern Gaza for southern Gaza, Israel then proceeded to drop 2,000-pound bombs in the area where they were told to evacuate to. This is ordnance that the U.S. no longer uses in dense areas because of it being basically just dumb bombs that do anything but protect civilians. Gaza, prior to almost 80% of the population being sequestered in less than 50% or 25% of the landmass, was already the densest place on Earth. So that is just, aside from like the framing and this and that, it's just outright fabrication. The idea that that no modern army has is just a lie.
And
it's just a lie.
Yeah, it's brazen. No modern army, no countries in this situation again, where they are backed by the most powerful country in the world in their massacre of an entrapped population that they control the borders of. Like, the uniqueness of the situation also means that, like, you can't basically draw any comparison to any other warfare again, because, like, how many Israeli civilians who weren't hostages have died since October 7th. And then let's have a conversation about if it's a war or not, or a massacre. And before we move on, I just want to point out like 3 different propagandistic things. And first of all, it's notable when they say this in English, who they're speaking to. This is to an American audience. Advocate for the devil is how he opens this. Now, I'm not Jewish, Sam. do you believe in? Do Jewish people believe in the devil?
We don't.
Yeah. So, this is a message to Christian Zionists in this country, right-wingers and Christians in general, that this is a holy war against the devil. This is a holy war against the barbaric rapist regime, just to dovetail it with the now renewed focus as we look backwards towards October 7th, 2023, on the day January 3rd, 2024, after 30,000 Palestinians are presumed dead, that we're going to be talking about these savages as rapists once again to continue to dehumanize what he also just says there, the monsters, the October 7th monsters. This is all incredibly deliberate.
And we should say, like, the charges brought by South Africa are not on behalf of Hamas. They're on behalf of Palestinians living in Gaza. That the Israeli government equates the two as being the same is indicative of their campaign. Go ahead.
Terror battlefield no army has faced before. That is why we spent weeks urging residents of northern Gaza to evacuate before the ground offensive. To warn civilians, we placed over 70,000 phone calls, sent 13 million text messages, left 14 million voice messages, and dropped nearly 7 million leaflets, urging civilians to evacuate temporarily for their safety, informing them about humanitarian pauses and precise evacuation routes. That is why we secured humanitarian corridors for civilians to escape Hamas. That is why we set up a helpline for Palestinian civilians to tell our army if Hamas was stopping them fleeing. And that is why we designated a humanitarian zone in one of the only places in Gaza where Hamas was not already hiding behind civilians. The Hamas rapist regime bears full moral responsibility for all casualties in this war that it launched on October 7 and is waging from inside and underneath hospitals, schools, mosques, homes, and UN facilities.
I don't
In giving political and legal cover to the October 7 massacre and the Hamas human shield strategy, South Africa has made itself criminally complicit with Hamas.
I mean, it's just all garbage.
When he starts going on about like the stats of like, this is the number of phone calls we placed, the number of text sent, it sounds like a McKinsey consultant trying to like justify a budget they got or something.
You know, one of the problems with getting some of those voicemails and those phone calls very well may be the fact that you cut off electricity during key moments and the internet.
And to the extent they do reach their intended recipient, it's like not a nice, oh, thanks for the heads up. It's a dystopian, oh, look at this drone that's come shouting at me that I need to leave or I'm going to be bombed in 5 minutes.
And I mean, this is one of the poorest populations on Earth. I've seen the footage of the second Nakba here, where Palestinians from the north were told to go to the south, to go to the Rafah crossing, and they were on foot, told they couldn't look backwards, walked elderly, children, people in wheelchairs. Many of them don't have vehicles, cars, the ability to go anywhere. And the United States gives a ton of aid to Egypt. The Rafah crossing going into Egypt is at the behest of Israel, Egypt, and the United States. So this is not like the Palestinians have any agency even in that scenario as well to leave. Plus, when they say temporary over and over again, we know that that's not true.
Well,
and
what are they going to
come back to? Yeah.
Israel has literally gotten rid of at least 40 to 50, maybe 60% of the housing in the entire Gaza Strip. All right. Go to the IMs, the devil. I'm not politically aligned with South Africa in any way. I'm mostly working with the GOP these days and ExxonMobil to destroy the planet. And don't worry, Kissinger is currently in the room full of hornets.
Good. Thank you, devil.
Sam's only fan. Could I please get a shofar for my wife, Chelsea, who's doing the Lord's work for progressive politics? We did this yesterday, Sam's only fans. We sent her a shofar yesterday. Militant apathy. He used rapists like it was commas in his talking points.
That doesn't signal a whole lot of confidence that, like, if you need to add rapists after Hamas regime, like between Hamas regime, means like you're kind of losing the juice on the Hamas thing.
Yep.
What happened to the baby beheaders? I thought we were supposed to hear about that, but that got debunked.
Historic closer Jim Jordan. Sam and Emma, yesterday someone asked you about supporting Marianne Williamson, and you said take on Palestine is bad, and to look it up, I did and found she supports a ceasefire and a two-state solution. I don't understand how that is bad compared to Biden. I mean, I
hadn't seen that. I just saw her recent comments in the wake of October 7th, which were not great. So, but it's better than Biden. But
the ceasefire is good, but it's also, and a two-state solution. But that's also Biden's position, a two-state solution. Like that, like as a progressive champion, that's not what I want from. Like Cornel West has a better position on that, although I'm not even sure if he's like. I'm not sure where.
Cornel West is much better than Williams,
imagine.
but nevertheless, she seems far more progressive than Biden, and doesn't support the genocider in Gaza. Yes, I mean
we granted that.
Granted that. Thank you. I appreciate it, guys. Keep up the work. Rick. I don't know. Adam from Indiana. Damn, this Israeli guy has perfect British accent. What's up with that? There are a lot of people who come from, England or United States or Russia that's in Israel. Phineas Sherb. Phineas as Herb. I don't know. Is it offensive, Sam, or is it electorally inconvenient? I'm not sure what that means. If genocide was offensive, you would understand why Black American support for Biden is withering. There's no doubt in my mind that that Black support for Biden is down from where it was in 2020. That was the case prior to Israel's assault on Gaza. And prior to Biden's, sort of unfettered support for it, I just don't believe that there has been a loss of 20% of Black support in that USA Today poll. I think that number just seems to me to be excessively large. Frankly, if it was white support, I'm not even sure that, I would just be surprised by that. That's just based on my experience. But if you want to make a wager that Biden's support amongst the Black community will be 20% less or more in 2020, I'd be willing to take that wager. But it's just my assessment. It's not, I'm not making a moral argument about it one way or another, whether it should or shouldn't be. I find that I find suspect in that poll. I don't know what else to tell you.
It's a shame because there'll be another poll conducted, so we'll just have to.
We'll never know.
We'll never know.
Phineas Arab, my experience as a Black person? In fact, no, I am not Black. I am a white person. My experience in looking at polls and behavior as a white person, I will tell you that it is atypical for me to vote for the Democrat. I can also speak to what I think about Republicans, even though the majority of white people in this country vote for Republicans and I don't. I will take your call Friday, 360 number. Yes, if we take phone calls, write down 360. We will take this call. Let's see. Marblehead Marxist. I do find it fascinating that Biden is largely a political cipher, except for this one incredibly unpopular issue. Like, really, Biden? This is the one thing you seem to give a shit about? Yeah, exactly. It's strange. I think LA accent. Biden is bleeding Latino voters. Some are already prone to conservatism, but the rest are feeling like they won't vote since he's horrendous on the border and allowed Israel to bomb Bethlehem on Christmas. That's just what I'm hearing. I mean, I don't even think, to the extent that he is losing Hispanic and Latino voters, I don't even think it's as dramatic as showed up in that poll for his bleeding of Black support. But again, I would need to see more. That seems like an outlier to me. I wouldn't be surprised if he lost 10% or 8% support to third parties. 20+%, I'm surprised by.
I mean, it's just hard. Like, we're so far out from an election. Like,
Yeah.
we don't even know really who the candidates are, though we can have, a guess. But things change. I just, I don't know. Maybe the significance of a poll this far out, take with a grain of salt.
All right. Let's go to this. This is what is going on here? Is he auditioning for some type of? Here's Michael Knowles wearing a zoot suit.
Oh yeah. Come on, get that tailored,
Big
buddy.
Voodoo Daddy concert later tonight.
As you may or may not be aware of, as of January 1st, some of the earliest Disney characters passed through their stage in terms of copyright. It was 1928 that the first Mickey Mouse went public, essentially. And I think it was like 25 years ago. It was supposed to be a 50-year, I think it was. And about 25 years ago to 30 years ago, Disney essentially got the law amended and pushed it to 78 years so they could continue to exploit their copyright. And which is, pretty absurd because, presumably this stuff is, you're developing this stuff and getting a copyright on it, maybe in your teens, maybe it would be the earliest. And the idea of you need that copyright 80 years to get the value out of something is silly. But there are Mickey Mouse stuff that is now being sort of, I guess, reinterpreted, and the characters are going to be reinterpreted. Like, for instance, we may be doing Mickey Mouse merch. And the majority of posit.
We're going to wear the ears. Also, people might remember Winnie the Pooh. This happened to like a year or two ago, and they did like a Winnie the Pooh horror movie. They've already announced a Steamboat Willie horror movie because that's the version of Mickey Mouse that's in the public domain now.
Oh, only that version?
Yeah, it's not the real Mickey Mouse version. It's Steamboat Willie.
Well, I've always found Mickey Mouse's laugh to be quite haunting, so I feel like that will go well.
It's that version.
Yeah.
But here is Michael Knowles weighing in on Steamboat Willie, and he is still, while Ron DeSantis has, sort of been in full retreat on his assault on Disney, because I can't remember even what it was now that we're supposed to be upset about.
Some
Disney.
Pixar employees, there's some gay Pixar employees wanted some representation in like a film.
Here is Michael Knowles weighing in.
Mickey Mouse has to become a Nazi. He has to. Because Disney is a very, very evil corporation that wants to trans your kids and fill their heads with all sorts of crazy ideas. And Disney's got to go. Disney's got to go, guys. You heard all the Disney executives talking about their not so secret LGBT LMNOP agenda. You've seen what Disney has done in recent years, so much so that the governor of Florida had to take political action against them to stop Disney from trying to interfere in the democratic process in Florida to stop the libs from transing your kids. Okay, Disney is really, really bad. And so one of the best things that we can do right now is make the Disney characters toxic. And coincidentally, call it providentially, whatever it is, the Disney character is now in the public domain. And what this means is we need to turn Mickey into a Nazi. Because Nazis are bad. We're not going to turn Mickey into a Nazi because the Nazis are good. You see, I'm quite anti-Nazi. I assume you are as well. In fact, being a Nazi is the worst thing you can possibly be today and for a very long time. So we need to turn Disney into the worst thing it can possibly be, and it can be done. In fact, I'm shocked that the mischievous people on places like 4chan and other internet boards haven't done this already.
I mean,
wait, what? He's shocked that I'm sorry.
No, he's asking 4chan to do that.
I understand, but
that's
the thing is that 4chan, they're Nazis on there, buddy. That's like that's the Nazi forum.
Yeah, to the extent that there's Daily Wired 4chaners, they're Nazis.
He's looking. That is a request. But what's sort of just bizarre here is are you really like promoting more Nazism and taking like the fact of the matter is that Mickey Mouse is a beloved character that kids look at, and if you start to Nazify Mickey Mouse,
which is what AI images you made, or like I guess even illustrated yourself images of him in like a Nazi helmet or something.
Like the idea that what we need to do is promote more Nazism as a way of getting Disney, it seems to me to be like even from his perspective, getting it a little backwards. Unless, of course, it's funny too, because I do get the sense that he's having to sort of like, he thinks he has a very clever idea and he wants to promote it. And then as he's saying it, he's like, oh, I don't want to get Candace Owens by my boss.
I have to really be explicit that I'm not
pro-Nazi. Yes, exactly. Nazis are bad.
Whoa.
And therefore, we should equate two bad things with each other and promote more Nazism, but only, and that's the one thing about Nazism. You can use a targeted amount of Nazism.
Yeah.
Right? Nazis are toxic. And so you can dip a little bit of Nazism in a drink to make yourself like maybe vomit if you're feeling nauseous.
Or they'll pick up on the irony, right? I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be subversive or something like that. I mean, the right-wing 4chaners always reappropriate these kinds of memes for their ends, right? Didn't they do that with that Pepe frog?
Yeah, but I also think like you can't direct those creeps. Like some loser like Michael Knowles, who like this is trying to make edgy what I grew up with like Catholic relatives who wouldn't let, not for like because she was anti-trans, but because it's a pagan, wouldn't let my cousins read Harry Potter. And how do we like basically speak for those people who are insane, but do it in a cool online way? And that's what Michael Knowles is trying now.
And, and the irony is, of course, is that Walt Disney was not exactly the most anti-Nazi guy.
Exactly.
I think he's an anti-communist.
Yes, yes. And I mean, look up what he had to say about Jewish people. Not great.
Mari, 55, as a black person doing grassroots work in the DMV in the last Virginia election, I can say the polls are inaccurate, at least in my region. By POC voters I speak with still support Biden. They're not voting based on the Gaza crisis either. Ryan from Bay Ridge, you guys seem very confident that any other position that Biden took would be more popular regarding Israel and Palestine. His position seems pretty close to the median American to me. What makes you so sure? Well, first of all, the median American includes 50% or 45% of people who aren't going to vote for him. So let's just make that clear. If you look at Democratic voters, the idea that they wouldn't tolerate a call from ceasefire from the president of the United States is completely without historical precedent. That's all I can tell you. That's
and against
why.
the polling, that shows that a majority of Democrats at this point support a ceasefire. So he's in very much to the right of the Democratic base right now.
I think he's to the right of essentially the American public. Like, I don't know that, calling for a ceasefire is honestly by an American president on, is low-hanging fruit.
So much so that Blinken
Obama did in
tweeted
2017.
Blinken tweeted out a ceasefire on October 10th and then had to delete it.
Yeah, I mean, this is knee-jerk stuff. I mean, if Joe Biden went on and said, I'm calling for a ceasefire, but I'm not going to withhold funding, or I'm going out there and not a penny for, not a dollar for Israel, that may start to put him in territory where there would be some political price to pay, but I'm not even convinced of that necessarily. But a ceasefire, beginning to sort of like restrain the amount of weaponry going to Israel. I'm sorry. I think all the data and all the history would suggest that would be a relatively safe political position for him to take.
It's one leaders have taken. I just mentioned Obama. You can see back in, I think it was 2013, 2014, you had Ed Miliband and David Cameron one-upping each other. David Cameron saying Gaza's an open-air prison. and Dave Miliband saying like, you know, you basically saying that wasn't enough and calling for a ceasefire. Like this is a thing that can be done. I don't know.
Fizzy Drink says, transing your kids, I want nothing more than to laugh in this guy's face. Incidentally, and you know what, we I've lost the this graph, but supposedly like the transition numbers are leveling off, which is exactly what you would expect.
Like the left-handedness.
It is exactly what you would expect when there has been a cultural shift that inhibited people from transitioning because of general hostility. But maybe we'll get into that when I see a piece on it. But all right, this is a fun thing. Right now, Vivek Ramaswamy will not be in the debate 7 days from today, I guess, next Wednesday night.
And what's the reason for that?
Because I have a audio graph of his poll numbers. There it is, right there. And that's
so
relative.
There's not an appetite for a contrarian anti-war guy in the Republican primary?
I will see you out on the trail. And
I will also support Israel.
Here he is. Here he is out on the trail and really mixing it up. And this is great to see some retail politics where he mixes it up with some of the Republican stalwarts in the Iowa caucuses. Here he is building bridges and taking smidges. I don't know how to building bridges and building bridges.
She'll set a good example for children in this country. Spread the message in this community.
Oh, pause it for 1 second. I just want to say, go back to the beginning. He's talking about his first lady, who is going to do a great job. And this guy chimes in to endorse.
He has an opinion.
He has an opinion about her as a first lady.
She'll set a good example for children in this country. Spread the message in this community.
Elegance. That's your wife.
That's right. You've seen her, yeah.
Simple elegance.
Thank you.
She doesn't have
She doesn't make a big production out of it.
She doesn't have an axe handles wide either.
No. She does her job.
Whoop. Doesn't have an ass that's 6 axe handles wide.
Yep.
I gotta say, and maybe I'm a coastal elitist, I've never heard that saying before.
No, me neither. I'm from North Dakota, but it does sound kind of familiar immediately. Though.
I thought he was trying to say she doesn't have an accent. Like when he started saying that, I was like, oh, we're going to go into a racist territory, right?
Nope.
But no, it's just about her body.
Yeah.
She has a simple elegance.
If you know
doesn't have, you know what I mean? She doesn't have a
fat ass.
Six axe handle wide ass.
I mean, come on, Iowa guy. Doesn't he want a woman with a little bit of meat on his
If you want to know why Ben Shapiro and Steven Crowder cannot miss an opportunity to react to Cardi B or Megan Thee Stallion every time that they can, it's because guys like this will click on any thumbnail with those women involved, and they will get mad that they feel attracted to their asses.
Disgusting. So disgusting. Twerking.
I'm so mad. It's making me feel.
I'm just.
Not to mention,
I'm like it gets me closer to the devil.
This guy, quite a catch. This guy's quite a catch here.
So I mean, God, what is that? What he doesn't care, right?
No.
I mean, that's the kind of guy. When you're that cynical, it doesn't matter if someone's gonna make an off-color comment.
I don't think he's used
about
to
your wife.
People just commenting on his wife's ass size, though. I do think he's probably not prepared for that.
I have to say that, like, I'm not sure how I would respond in this type of situation if I was Vivek. Like, I don't know if I would go, excuse me? I think more than anything else, I'd be like, I've never heard that saying before.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Does it mean that her ass is not wide enough or too wide? I'm not sure what that means.
I think that's why you get folksy like that, because you impress people so much with the turn of phrase that the sort of like violation that you
right.
They're still trying to figure it out. So I don't know. I mean, I guess Vivek could have said, like, what do you mean by that? Oh, I don't think that's an appropriate way to talk about a really anybody for that matter.
Who'd have lost his remaining 50 voters.
Exactly. There you go. That's why you're not on the thing. I wonder if Tim Pool will ask him. I wonder if he's going to have sush with Tim Pool.
We'll see.
Oh yeah, this is to be fair is a this is just a tweet, right? That
he's upset that at some news. This is from late November that basically he's lamenting his inability to get lost in Christmas nostalgia because of some cultural changes that are going on
in Europe. Yes, and this is back though from this is almost a month ago.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is Tim Pool getting very upset. There's no video to this, right?
There's video.
Oh, there is. Okay, let's play this.
Oh, there's recently, I saw on Instagram an AI-generated video which created the most intense version of this feeling. I would say it's akin to some kind of nostalgia, some kind of like feeling of home. It was an AI video of a cabin with a full 20-foot glass wall from the hilltop overlooking the town with heavy snow falling, a fireplace, and a TV playing cartoons. And there's a reason why this video had tens of thousands of likes and was being, algorithmically pushed on Instagram. Because people from areas with winter know that feeling. Here's my point. These feelings you get, and many of you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about, it feels good, and you never want to let it go, and you want it again and again. And when you're sitting in these moments,
Hold on, I'm
sipping
so
a hot
sorry.
cocoa with a
What is
loved
he
one, with the
talking
lights
about?
turned low and the muffled snow just before...
I need us. I'm sorry to do this to the audience, but I need us to start over so I can follow the train of thought. So this man is just, again in his late 30s, but he is speaking here like I did when I was 10 about the time around Christmas, right? Okay.
And he's this is the sort of thing.
This is the kind of thing that he wants, like a childlike. Yeah, I mean that sounds lovely, right?
I was in Arizona on Christmas Day. Guess what happens there? It doesn't snow.
I know. Well, it doesn't snow here anymore either. I guess I'm a little bit.
Is he
bummed about
lamenting
that.
climate change, or does he
Right.
still think that's fake?
Yeah, that's fake.
Okay, I just need to the just incredible kind of arrestedness of this is fascinating.
That is, yeah, exactly. I'll comment more on the AI thing after.
So there's recently, I saw on Instagram an AI-generated video which created the most intense version of this feeling. I would say it's akin to some kind of nostalgia, some kind of like feeling of home. It was an AI video of a cabin with a full 20-foot glass wall from the hilltop overlooking the town with heavy snow falling, a fireplace, and a TV playing cartoons. And there's a reason why this video had tens of thousands of likes and was being, algorithmically pushed on Instagram. Because people from areas with winter know that feeling. Here's my point. These feelings you get, and many of you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about, it feels good, and you never want to let it go, and you want it again and again. And when you're sitting in these moments, sipping a hot cocoa with a loved one, with the lights turned low and the muffled snow just before,
the AI
just during dusk in the winter.
Yeah, pause.
The clouds are out, so it's.
I would love to see the AI version of his loved one that's actually sitting with him with the hot cocoa.
Oh God!
Hi,
Got
Tim.
a 4-inch waist and.
Hi, Tim.
Hi, Tim Pool's dad. I mean, who watches this show and had some nice things to say about my performance in the debate with Tim. Is he did you just you don't have these kind of family moments, I guess, with hot cocoa anymore, and that's what he's longing for.
Yeah, he's missing it.
I would love to see that AI version of Tim's loved one that's sitting next to him.
I love to sit with hot cocoa and look at AI images of winter times.
More sushi with the boys.
Yeah. By the way,
when you're sitting in these.
Yeah, it's like the people put that video on the background to go to sleep, and he's acting like this is some sort of.
I gotta say, I look. I made that AI image I showed of the boys
and the
hangout.
sushi.
I gotta say, I those images are kind of vaguely engaging, but my problem is when I look at that, you see the hollowness of like, okay, that's
completely soulless
Yeah.
whatsoever. They are just.
That's not a real town.
No, it's completely soulless. It's completely soulless. First of all, I don't know, to have those two intersecting glass walls, incidentally, folks, you got to be extremely wealthy to have a house like that, because it's not going to retain the heat very well.
I was just saying,
and
the
it ain't going to
heating
be
bills.
that fireplace that's going to be doing it either. Y'all grew up with that, though, apparently. Some type of not even Swiss
Bond
chalet,
layer.
like a bond layer. Go ahead.
And was being, algorithmically pushed on Instagram. Because people from areas with winter know that feeling. Here's my point. These feelings you get, and many of you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about, it feels good, and you never want to let it go, and you want it again and again. And when you're sitting in these moments, sipping a hot cocoa with a loved one, with the lights turned low and the muffled snow just during dusk in the winter, the clouds are out, so it's, very dim, but you can see outside and the lights of the city.
Speaking of dim,
you want to share that feeling. You want your children to know these feelings. Something truly fascinating.
What does he know about children?
Now, I think this is why people say, I'm upset when I hear that Muhammad is the most popular name. Because it's that thing you grew up with. That connection to your roots, to your history, that the feeling you get, it's going away. People are going to fight for that feeling.
Hold it. How is he equating? How is he equating the idea of being in a multi-million-dollar chalet, watching the snow fall at dusk during Christmas, and then you pick up your phone and look at what some of the top names of children in Europe are, and see that number 5 is mom, and go, it's all ruined. It's all ruined.
You can enjoy Christmas with Muslim people.
Yeah.
There's an image of if you search Christmas in Palestine, for instance.
What is there? What is that Bethlehem place all about? It's being ruined. You can't have the chalet in Aspen during Christmas with the huge windows overlooking the valley.
Just by knowing that someone named Muhammad might be your neighbor.
Or just exist in Europe.
Yeah.
It's a European list.
I've been overloading the Dolly servers, having it make AI images of different Christmas scenes. Because the hit just isn't the same each successive time. It is like drugs, but I just can't. I'm searching for something more.
Is there?
And in the
And it must be the
I have
Muhammad
to find
name.
out that all these people around me are naming babies Muhammad.
Yeah.
Is there any way that he can't take, he's just got 2 columns. That's the way he does his show. Here's A, here's B. And every day his prep is just how do I
first the Daily Mail
draw a line between this Daily Mail story and then this other Daily Mail story? Oh, I know. Okay.
It's like ping pong balls.
Yeah.
And
keep going. I got to hear where these.
That's it. But
can we just go back for that transition? Because that's one of the best transitions I feel like I have ever experienced in my life.
Look, Tim's arrestedness and his projection about his kind of lonely life has never been more apparent than in this particular clip, where he's conflating
baby names.
He's conflating a popular baby name in Europe with his lack of familial connection at Christmas time.
And also, what does he know about you want to pass that on to your kids?
Also,
I got news for you, dude.
AI images.
Exactly.
I have
nowhere.
I've seen Superbad. I know that Muhammad is supposedly the most popular name in the world.
Kids, do you want to see a fake image of what Christmas was like when I was a child? But here, let's keep doing this, because this, honestly, all these things we can say, nobody can do a segue like Tim Pool can do a segue. Go ahead.
Of likes, and was being, algorithmically pushed on Instagram. Because people from areas with winter know that feeling. Here's my point. These feelings you get, and many of you know exactly the feeling I'm talking about, it feels good, and you never want to let it go, and you want it again and again. And when you're sitting in these moments, sipping a hot cocoa with a loved one, with the lights turned low and the muffled snow just during dusk in the winter, the clouds are out, so it's, very dim, but you can see outside and the lights of the city. You want to share that feeling. You want your children to know these feelings. Something truly fascinating. Now, I think this is why people say, I'm upset when I hear that Muhammad is the most popular name. Because it's that thing you grew up with. That connection to your roots, to your history, that the feeling you get, it's going away. People are going to fight for that feeling.
I am just so blown away by that. And it's not even that Muhammad's the most popular. It's actually number 4 on the list.
Yeah, after Lucas,
in
Alexander,
Europe.
Oliver.
In Europe, right.
In Europe.
Yeah.
It is number 4 on the list of top 10 most common names in Europe. And the idea that, I'm going to be, I can't deal with any change in Europe whatsoever. As if all the names have been static throughout that time. It is fascinating.
It's almost, it's like he has a random idea generated. It's like, okay, war on Christmas, we need that. Some sort of fertility panic or something, we need that. And Muslims need that. Oh, we nailed it. AI. Oh, also AI.
The Grinch is named Muhammad. I didn't realize that. But yeah, he's just, and also you can just see in his mind, he's tying kind of whiteness and Christianity to his nostalgia about his childhood.
Oh, this is the great replacement theory.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's basically what it is.
Yeah, except with a lot more deep repression and also kind of issues that Tim has with, growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of fascinating.
Yes.
It's really fascinating. We're going to turn the voicemail off. In other words, 646-257-3920 will allow you to call into the program and join us, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk about. Do you want to do this Aaron Rodgers thing? Because this is your former. This is. Let me just say this, Emma, as a way of setting you up. And anybody who grew up in the Northeast knows this. You want to be sitting in your glass chalet and watch the snow fall during Christmas. And it's like you fall in love with that
feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then if someone comes by and says, this is all fabricated, it's heartbreaking. I don't know why I want to say that before you talk about Aaron Rodgers, but go ahead.
Well, he was at one point my favorite player in the sport. I was a big defender, big fan.
Let's just contextualize this. The favorite player in your favorite sport, and sports are your favorite thing.
Yeah.
So really,
I was a big fan, and I thought he was actually
I think 3 or 4 bigs might describe it a little bit better.
Matt made fun of me earlier today and said I was describing him like I would an angel falling from heaven.
But you said fall from grace.
I did. He had a fall from grace in my eyes. I just thought he was and he supported Black Lives Matter. I was like, oh, this is great. This guy, he's not afraid to speak out against in this NFL world, what he really
and he stays in the pocket for 4 seconds per.
Well, he didn't stay in the pocket. He was very mobile and athletic. That was also what was exciting about him at the time. Anyway, turns out he's a huge douchebag. Huge douchebag, and it's painful for me to even acknowledge it, but I have to because I'm intellectually honest.
Now, what is this show?
Oh my God, it's Pat McAfee's show. So he goes on here every week and speaks about his feelings because he thinks he's the most interesting guy on the planet. And because of this compulsion, he may have also slandered Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, so a little bit more context is Aaron and Jimmy Kimmel have gone back and forth a few times. Jimmy Kimmel, with regards to the COVID vaccine stuff, because that's another thing is McAfee, and I don't really know much about him, but why do you have I guess because he was a good player, but like Aaron Rodgers is a moron.
No, I mean,
and
Matt
repeatedly puts his foot
Yeah.
in his mouth like this and is a liability for that show. So I would maybe stop.
It's
having
not
him
a
on.
liability. I mean, not to like McAfee was a Barstool host, and then and then FanDuel picked him up, and he got a multi-million-dollar
Right.
ESPN deal because of like these weekly, basically Aaron Rodgers appearances where he would break news specifically about Rodgers. And that guy on the right there is one of Aaron Rodgers' old friends from the Packers. So like whenever Aaron needs a safe space to speak about how he thinks without getting any pushback, he goes to this program.
Bring it up, Foxy or somebody back there.
Seats on it.
Bring up Super Bowl 58.
You'll see it.
The emblem, put it on the screen. And then bring up 57 and 56.
This has something to do with the Epstein list that came out.
Feels like That's supposed to be coming out soon.
Look, this guy's been waiting in his wine cellar.
Yeah.
I've been waiting in my wine cellar for this thing.
A lot of people, including Jimmy Kimmel, are really hoping that doesn't.
All right.
There you go. Oh, we're about to get
Look
sued.
at that smug little smile.
Oh, we're about to get sued.
Yeah, and Jimmy Kimmel said, I've never met him. I'm not on those logs, and maybe prepare for a lawsuit. McAfee is today saying, look, we're just joshing around.
Of course.
What happens when you joke and you occasionally make some really. I mean, that's what the thing about this is, like, and how the right wing particularly engages with the Epstein flight log thing is it shows a pretty. I think psychopathic level of unseriousness, because this is really serious things we're dealing with, and to just cavalierly make an accusation like that about Jimmy Kimmel is just disgusting.
That really is the point, is that, like, there is such a nexus between the COVID denialism and the anti-vaxxer stuff and the sort of Pizzagate pedophile rings, where it is really more of like a totem than it is about trying to, root out like corruption. And, this is a story of corruption, and there could be a story of of blackmail associated with it. And I don't think that every single person who is, going to end up being on these lists are necessarily, corrupt or were being blackmailed by Epstein, or who knows for what purposes and by whom. I think some people are there to give him credibility, to make other people feel comfortable that he wants to put into a compromising position. Never mind the victimization of these women and girls. It is serious stuff, and it is like sort of dragged into their sort of like creepy ass worldviews that are really more about sort of self-stroking themselves.
Yeah. Oh no, Rodgers is good at that. I mean, and you see like how that conspiracy hole begins. I don't know when he started going down this conspiracy rabbit hole. He came from what I again initially liked about him was he had a very fundamentalist or evangelical, like, Christian background family, where he had cut himself off from his family when he got into the NFL because of some of those differences in religiosity. But you can see how, like, it's still completely the same frame of mind that he applies to, like, the magical thinking associated with anti-vax stuff, and how all of this is, and a lot of the conspiracy theories that he espouses. So, like, yeah, I mean, he's just an athlete or whatever, and he's a complete faux intellectual who thinks he's smarter than everybody else. But whether it's, him or Kyrie Irving or whoever, guys who have made a lot of money and then kind of hermetically seal themselves off from any kind of other criticism, they do influence people. And yeah, the Epstein stuff, when the left approaches it, is about, like, let's talk about influence and how we can get big money out of and blackmail and those kinds of folks out of power. And for those kinds of guys, it's just like, no one is as pure as us
against political rivals. It's not like, oh, look at both, like, multiple presidents from both parties, Trump and Clinton, and also the royal family. Like, there are serious things implicated here. Maybe scoring a point off of Jimmy Kimmel because you're mad that he made fun of your dumb shit anti-vax stuff. Like, be a little bit more serious around the things you're using as a vehicle for attention seeking.
And the thing is that, obviously people are you're in a situation where you're joking around, but there's a reason why the guys on that show reacted that way. Yeah. Like the closest people to him in the world reacted that way. Because it's not just a joke. It was his way of trying to attack Kimmel.
Yeah, I mean, he goes on the show. That's when he called Travis Kelce Mr. Pfizer. He goes on there to be an attack dog. It's so insecure and bizarre. And just last point on this.
He's mid. He's like, that's the thing about him is like he was an all-time great quarterback, and he's a midwit. He isn't actually clever, and that's going to drive him crazy as people forget about who he was on the football field.
Oh, totally. I mean, that's part of why he's doing this. He played 4 snaps, and then he was out for the year. And just last point on this. Good example of like, psychedelics don't necessarily make you a liberal. He loves shrooms, ayahuasca, weed. He talks about it all the time. Actually, for someone like him, and I'm also reminded of the Sopranos episode where Tony takes what is it? Some psychedelic to get over after he did something horrible. Like sometimes it just makes people who are narcissistic more obsessed with their own thoughts. So like the theory of
it is not good for it is not good for folks who are
narcissistic. So for Rogers, it's made him more obsessed with himself. And like we can disprove that theory that psychedelics make you in some way more open or left wing. For people like this, it actually just makes them more convinced of their own bullshit.
Calling from a 616 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Nick from West Michigan.
Nick from West Michigan. What's on your mind?
So I've been listening to the program for a while, listening to Left Reckoning and such. Something last night mentioned there, and then also some stuff today has me thinking a little bit about like how do we really check, I guess, Biden going into the election this year. It's just again with just like the lead weight on him of like the whole Gaza crisis. Like part of me is questioning like maybe is it worth putting effort into voting for other people in primaries if there even are options. I mean, in a lot of places, Marianne Williamson isn't even on the ballot. I just like really feel kind of helpless and wonder if there's anything you can suggest for ways that we can really try to like put more pressure on Biden to.
Primary is the best opportunity for that. Voting in the primary is the best opportunity for that. I think if you had a limited amount of resources in terms of putting pressure on something, it is probably better expended pound for pound, dollar for dollar, whatever the resources are on your congressperson or your senator. I can't remember where you said you were from, but
West Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, and that I think that is where you're going to get the primary. I mean, he's going to win all the primaries. There's no doubt about it. But certainly, a vote in the primary against him is going to sort of like make them wonder what it is. I don't know that people are going to vote. As many people as you would want would vote, or I think would vote in a primary against him because of his foreign policy. And particularly, Israel and Gaza. But because there's a lot of other reasons why I think people are going to vote against him in the primary if they vote. You know what I mean? But I think, I think like there are, I don't know what other effective mechanisms there are, because voting for Trump in the general or aiding Trump's election victory in the general is not going to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not like even in Michigan, there's even the luxury I have to even consider not voting with I mean, it seemed like Michigan might have been close to becoming more a blue state, but with the concerns about a lot of lack of voter turnout and more of the Detroit side.
Yep. I mean, it is, it's a horror show. And, I certainly understand the impetus to saying like I can't vote for this guy in the general election. I mean, I understand why people have that reaction. It's this, his, and it really does have a sense of like it is. I don't think there's a lot of things where I would say like a politician has an actual belief that they're operating on, and it is sort of like dipped in amber and locked in. But it really does feel that way in this instance with Biden.
Especially when you contrast it with what Lloyd Austin's saying.
Exactly.
Because the Pentagon and like the people there, I mean, look, they're focused on how can U.S. strategic interests be advanced? And I don't agree often, almost always, with like what that means. But they do understand what our actions mean within the context of like broader regional objectives. And it seems like Austin is taking a very different tack than Biden. And that should be scary to people because that means that Biden is not necessarily listening to people in the administration or, his advisors that outside of Blinken that should be
I don't even know.
I
don't even know where Blinken is in this. I mean, I'm not trying to be coy about it. I have no idea. I mean,
totally. Yeah.
We know that he tweeted out early on, ceasefire, and that got pulled back.
He strikes me as a good soldier for Biden.
I mean, you're in the administration, people. That's what people do. But in terms of, I think there's a limited number of options to influence Biden, and I think the primary is, one of the best, but also pressuring your Congress people because Biden will feel that pressure before he will, I think even in a primary, to be honest with you. But appreciate the call.
Yeah, thank you. Take care, Sam. Take care, Emma.
And I mean that in a primary too, based upon the candidates we have. If there was a real threat to Biden's winning the primary, and that person had a different position than Biden on Israel, then I think it would have more leverage.
Yeah.
But that's just not the scenario we have.
I wish that we had an issue candidate on climate change. We'd said that before.
Yep.
And now I wish, of course, we had an issue candidate on Palestinian rights.
Yep.
But
call him from a 713 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, we hear ourselves.
Get on your phone.
Let's wait for us to catch up.
And that philosophy was being piped to Earth.
There you are.
I wish that we had an issue. Oh, yeah.
How's it feel to...
Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting.
I'd rather hear myself versus see myself.
Hello? I got to grab the phone. I just heard my name. Yeah. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
This is Aaron. I'm from Southeast Texas.
Aaron from Southeast Texas. What's on your mind? We've been waiting some time
to
hear.
I talk to you guys about the segment that you had yesterday on Bill Maher.
Okay.
So I am a relatively young person. I'm 30 years old, and I had a kidney transplant back in 2020. And so due to the medications that I'm taking and just the effects that those medications have on my immune system, I don't receive any benefits from the COVID vaccinations. And I just think that the irresponsibility that he has with his platform, the stupid remarks that he makes about vaccination, it just disgusts me because he has such a massive influence on the people that listen to his program. And, just as a young person that, tries to take care of himself, I don't know, it's just despicable to me.
Your immune system is compromised by your transplant.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so I've received every COVID vaccine, and I have no uptake from any of the vaccines in my body. So I have no benefits from the vaccines, even though I've received the original and 3 boosters.
And so to be clear, you take medication that keeps your body from rejecting your new kidney, and that medication makes it impossible for your antibodies to react to the presence of what's in the vaccine, and therefore you can't build up some type of natural immunity. Is that how it works?
That's exactly correct, Sam. That's exactly correct.
And yeah, it is, I think, his perspective is that like, well, you're SOL. I mean,
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying.
Yep. You lost the lottery. I won the lottery. And, my vision of society is that if I win the lottery, I win the lottery. And if you lose the lottery, that's the final verdict. So good luck.
It's just incredibly messed up. I really appreciate the way you guys cover this topic because, the Majority Report's great. You guys are awesome. Emma, Sam, the whole crew. I love you guys. And that's all I had to say.
All right. Well, appreciate the call. And I'm sorry that there are douchebags out there who will take the benefits of society for themselves. But when it comes to extending any of, society's efforts to provide benefits to people who are in situations, whether by their own making or not their own making, disadvantage them in some way. They don't perceive society as functioning in that way. I mean, he's a libertarian.
Yeah.
That's bottom line.
Exactly. It's a libertarian ideology. Exactly.
Appreciate the call. Hang in there.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Evan from Portland. I'm in the same place as the caller and 7 million other immune-compromised Americans. 5 full vaccines in me and nearly no antibody production.
I'm so sorry that there are idiots out there like this.
Calling from a 204 area code. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Hey, is this me?
Yep.
Hey, my name's Nick, calling from Winnipeg.
Nick from Winnipeg. What's on your
You guys
mind?
are doing well?
Doing fine. Thank you.
Well, I didn't get into any fun arguments over the Christmas with a relative who's in the RCMP, very conservative Daily Wire viewer and dumb as a post.
Okay.
But I was thinking of if that came up, how to approach it. And I've had some, maybe not success, but like if people are in that situation, I think it's best to just ask questions. Because like conservatism
Socrates,
involves
baby.
a lot of like heavy contradictions. And I think that people have the right to like believe whatever they want to believe. But I don't think anybody has the right to not ever have those contradictory opinions like brought to their attention.
I think you're absolutely no. I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think if it's been a while since we've had a libertarian call in, but that's essentially what I do when I'm talking to a libertarian, because at one point those contradictions become incredibly evident, not just to the people who are listening, but to that person. And it's just a question of of tying together these two threads that are actually ostensibly from the same piece of two ends of this, ostensibly the same piece of thread, but they turn out to be completely contradictory. And it also makes people, I think, because I don't believe that you can convert anybody in one conversation. The most you can do, and when I am out in the real world, which is different than the way I'll react to somebody who calls in on this show. When I'm out in the real world, I will basically ask questions until the contradiction shows up, and let them sit with it and let it marinate, because that's like you've basically planted the seed. And that has to grow on its own. They can either ignore that contradiction, or it becomes like a welt that just keeps growing and growing, like a cancer. I mean, I'm not suggesting you get people cancer.
Sam wants to give people cancer.
I don't want to give people cancer. I had a fascinating conversation with a guy who I met over the holidays, who does not identify as a conservative and doesn't think of himself as a conservative. I think he has always been Republican, lives in a very conservative area, grew up in a very conservative context, is very religious, and said he can't stand Trump, but he can't stand Biden. And as we talked, outside of like he at first it seemed like he was a sort of like a sort of like a classic old school Republican, even though his context would have him be a far more social conservative. In that he didn't want Joe Biden to raise taxes on him. But as I spoke to him, it became clear to me that he was to the left of Joe Biden on just about every issue. And even to the point where, like, as I was, all I'm doing is asking questions. And he said, like, yeah, he spent some time in Denmark. He would love that situation. He said he was a fan of Bernie Sanders. And it became clear that, like, he didn't want to pay taxes and live in the society we have now. That he was like, but if he thought that his taxes were going to add to the social services, and by the end, all I had to say was like, dude, you're to the left of Joe Biden. And that's where I just left it. I was just like, you're to the left of Joe Biden. I mean, I understand what you're talking about. You're to the left, and just my sense was like, let that go, and who knows where that's going to grow at that point. But yeah, I think that's a very good, astute realization. And I think that's the best way to approach it. I really do.
Right on. Can I do one more thing?
Please.
In that sort of vein, and Matt might have a bit more to say on this, but I had, after last year at Christmas, we were arguing about stuff for like 5 hours. And I think just watching this show has given me a lot of endurance for that sort of thing. But I just asked him, like, hey, how do you deal with the fact that, like, you have all these beliefs, but you call yourself a Christian, and, like, the message of Jesus is without a doubt socialist. And he said that was, like, probably the best argument that I'd be able to make for socialism for him. So I don't know. I just, like, maybe, do you guys think that that's, like, a useful way to shoehorn some of that stuff in, or are people so comfortable keeping their religious contradictions with their politics that it won't really have much of an impact?
Yeah, I mean, I find it difficult. I found religion a difficult avenue for that because of the abortion stuff. Just personally, like, people, you can try to, give your own gospel reading, but they go to church, and then at least my, family and extended family go to church and hear a Catholic priest talk about how the most important thing you do is vote against abortion. And that they'll just put that in right, alongside like readings of the Bible. So I think if you can speak that vernacular, you should in those arguments. Cause I do think, I think religious people are, willing to hear. If somebody like knows 2 Corinthians, for instance, like, people are put at ease by that. But I think there's
or if you know more than them.
Exactly, right? Like, exactly.
There's a lot of religious people that actually don't know what's in there. So if you can frame things in a way where, like, you tell them to seek out information, you frame it already.
Yeah,
do your own research.
You look like an authority on the Bible. That puts yourself in a pretty credible position.
I would add that I don't think there's, personally, I find that, particularly when you're starting the conversation, that rather than sort of say Jesus was socialist, you say Jesus believed in X, Y, and Z. And I believe in that too. Now, some might call that socialism. I don't, obviously socialism didn't exist, but you don't, people are going to turn off if you say Jesus was a socialist.
Right.
But if you say Jesus was for the most amount of benefit to the most amount of people, I think they'll be far more open. But appreciate the call.
Right on. Thank you, guys.
Jesus should have patented his fish multiplication and wine multiplication techniques.
Totally. All right, the final call of the day, ladies and gentlemen. Calling from a 626 area code. You are the final call of the day.
Wow. Can't believe it.
Yep.
Holy crap.
Yep.
All right. Hi. Okay. Well, the first caller actually kind of had a similar concern as me, and that's just about Biden. And as you, in your response to him, you alluded to really what I'm trying to get at, which is the primaries. And I just want to promote the mindset and the strategy, if you will, that particularly when you're talking about a primary, I really want to promote the mindset of not being concerned about what, I don't know why I'm saying about like a Canadian. I don't have that accent. Anyway, I want to promote the mindset of not being concerned with, who's most likely to win, because that's the whole benefit of a primary, that you don't need to concern yourself with that. And I'm just worried that it always creates this self-fulfilling prophecy where if we say, well, Biden's going to win, like there's no credible challenger, then of course that's what's going to happen. And I do concede, of course, it's extremely unlikely that Marianne Williamson will beat Biden, but someone's got to get the momentum started, and that someone is, who would that someone be if not us, right? Like we're the main demographic of a Williamson supporter. So I want to just say, I started a monthly contribution to her, and I don't even have a lot of money, but I figured, you know what, just do what I want to do, what I can, and let's just all do that. Why don't we support Marianne Williamson and be a little more optimistic about it, Emma said, sorry. Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I get your point, but I don't need to think that she's going to win to convince me to vote for her in the primary. I'm not saying that I necessarily am going to vote for her in the primary, but let's assume for the sake of argument that I am. I don't need that, because the way that I vote is to come up with a theory of change that's associated with a vote. Now, it's one vote, right? And, the basic assumption you have to start is that your vote matters. And people could argue it doesn't. But I operate under the assumption that my vote matters. It matters very, 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 very little, but it matters. And it is one of the tools that I can use to influence politics. And so I don't need her to win to influence politics. I need her.
What's the problem with her peace platform and climate change platform?
What's the problem with it?
Yeah, because that you're alluding to, the initial thing I brought up is not a concern for you. So great. So we're in agreement. Then what is the problem then?
No. You're misinterpreting what I'm saying. I'm saying
okay,
my reason to vote for her, I don't need to convince myself that she's going to win to vote for her.
Yeah.
I can vote for her because a primary is a proven venue to influence what the positions are of the eventual winner of the primary. That's
so far you're agreeing with me. It sounds like. Right?
Yeah. I'm just the only thing I'm saying is that you're saying you can will into existence her winning, and I'm saying I actually can maintain a rational perspective on the fact that she's going to lose, but there's still value in voting for Biden's for Biden's opponent. Like for instance, when Zephyr Teachout ran against Andrew Cuomo in the primary for governor, whatever it was, 10 years ago, just her getting 30% of the vote in that primary to his 70% began to weaken him and ultimately led to his inability to run for president, in my estimation.
Agreed. The thing is just like, caller, I don't think she's a serious candidate. Zephyr Teachout is a serious candidate. And somebody who
has... Why did you define that? Why did you define her as
because I don't really think she's like actively that much seeking ballot access.
I have a simple definition is like, what endorsements does she have from like a union?
Does she have any union back?
I think there's a different tier of candidate from a message candidate. When Bernie graduated from message candidate to actual candidate when like the teachers union got behind him. If I have Marianne Williamson on Left Reckoning, which might happen, that will be one of my questions, which is like, this is a message campaign. I frankly will probably vote for Marianne in the Democratic primary, but like to tell people in my audience that they should be doing a monthly donation to her, I am very short of that, and but I will maybe get there if like the UAW endorsed her or something.
Yeah,
like
I'm
that.
not saying you have to spend money, but I'm just saying, what's the alternative? The alternative is Biden. I mean, Biden really is. It looks like it's very possible he'll lose to Trump, and not only that, but he's just a horrible.
Well, Marianne
politician
Williamson's
in
not going to
general.
beat Trump either. I mean, the fact is, like, she's not like
I get frustrated because we should be
I see what
focusing
you're
a theory of change on things that like actually matter or actually make a difference.
Can happen.
And I think that the energy, like, I think there's an online media ecosystem that likes focusing particularly on presidential
Yes,
races.
because that's where the attention is.
And having Marianne Williamson on like 40 separate times in order to like get views. And then it creates this artificial like importance about the presidential race when we already know it's going to be Biden. Biden laughs about Marianne Williamson behind her back. He doesn't actually take anything seriously when votes go to her. So if we're actually trying to make change, direct it towards Senate, congressional races from an electoral perspective, or organize with your local DSA and other unions. This is a vanity campaign, in my opinion, and I find it a little bit frustrating that we keep have to answer, or talk about this because it's sapping energy from other ways to make more meaningful change in this country.
And we're not even negative about
And
it.
I'm more negative a little bit because I feel like you've heard from other staffers of hers that it's not serious about getting ballot access. And, you have the right to spend your money on whatever, but it hurts a little my heart to hear that because I feel like there could be a DSA candidate in your area or something that could benefit much more from that kind of money.
Yeah, that's the main fair point that I can agree with. And I wasn't 100% sure that it was like a super rational thing to donate money, but in terms of spending energy, like just checking a box, I mean, I just don't see the.
Well,
the
no, I
value
think
of
that's what we're saying. I mean, I think it's exactly what we're saying. Throwing a
My point is
vote
just I don't see the value of checking the box
throwing a
next to
vote
Biden,
to a candidate in a primary who is arguably a message candidate. I mean, arguably hitting the threshold of a message candidacy, as opposed to even contending to be a serious candidate. I think I think that makes total sense. Dedicating resources, et cetera, that are limited, as in your case, like you said, I think probably makes less sense. I mean, but you spend your money how you want to spend it. But in terms of like honestly, impacting change, it's unclear that money is being used in a way that is going to,
let's not focus on the money, just the vote. She's polling at 14%.
Sure, the vote.
I think we're all agreeing.
Yes.
That,
I think her as a message candidate, I wish there was. I don't think she's a very strong message candidate, but in the primary, I don't give a crap who you
I
vote
wish
for.
we had more alternatives.
I wish we had more alternatives too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the situation. It sucks, We got Biden and we got her,
Totally.
So what are you gonna do? Yeah. Okay. All right. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate the call. All right, so now we'll do some IMs.
Oh, sorry, I have to cut in here. I found the TikTok that Tim Pool was referencing with the snow playing outside and the cartoons, and there's Tom and Jerry playing on the TV there. I'll just play that for everybody so you can get a sense of it like this.
This makes me feel like home. Relatable
I feel
to people,
such
right?
a sense of despair at
the indoor pool. What happened to my indoor pool?
Look at there's like giant candles. Just
Also, the water doesn't move like that. So, I mean, it looks like Jello in there.
Yeah, but you don't understand this because you're not from the north where people have snow.
You're right.
Or an indoor pool with a skylight like that.
I mean, so you're presumably heating the pool
When I look
and
honestly,
that
when I look at
place?
this, I just think I can't believe Muhammad is preventing me from going in there and gosh darn it.
Imagine thinking
if only Frederick was still a popular name.
Yes.
Or Bill or Kevin. Where are all the Bills and Kevins?
If there was a Kevin, we'd have the key to our happiness.
I'd be able to enjoy the dual helix staircase.
There's no more Eds or Bobs or Kevins or Bills anymore. It's all I don't know,
Society's
Mateo
crumbling.
or Nico or Petra, and that's why I don't have an indoor pool anymore.
Like that classic winter experience of watching a blizzard outside as you're in an indoor pool. Watching Tom and Jerry.
Everyone can relate.
Oh my God. The best leftists. Majority Report, your message is very confusing. We should all advocate for and vote for Marianne Williamson in the primary to send the message. I'm not sure I would say advocate, but okay. Just stipulated.
If she's even on the ballot in your state.
It's not a vanity campaign. That's very demeaning to what she's doing.
What is she doing?
Are you serious? First of all, I can tell you this. Bernie was, was running a message campaign in 2016. Almost like explicitly. Of course, everyone says I'm running to win. But honestly, if you're running to win, somewhere around the sixth campaign manager that you've lost and the failure to get on ballots in a way that could ever possibly win you the nomination, if you're running to win at that point, that's even more demeaning. Let's just this whole thing, I don't care about I don't think of a politician as a human being.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's not the point. Nobody deserves to be president. Nobody's nice enough to be president. Nobody's mean enough not to be president. Nobody, any of this stuff. I really honestly
It's about the coalition they bring with you.
It's the coalition.
What's her
it's the
coalition
message that they're bringing
besides selling books?
It's the message that they're bringing. It is what is the theory of change? These people are when they're politicians, they are pieces on some type of chessboard. And there's no demeaning and this and that. If you're saying that calling it a message campaign is going to keep her from winning the campaign and winning the primary, and you genuinely believe that, I have a bridge to sell you.
Yeah, silly.
The people who are going to are in a position to vote for Marianne Williamson, for the most part, the vast majority, certainly the ones listening to this show, will do so if they think that there is a message that could resonate, that could in some way influence the eventual winner of that primary, who at this point is going to be Joe Biden. And unless there is some type of force majeure incident, that's who it's going to be.
Yeah, and this has nothing to do, Marianne's been lovely when I've spoken to her. I have nothing against her personally, but I don't think that the energy from what I've read from this campaign, it doesn't seem serious. I definitely don't think you should be donating your money to it. And every freaking IM that we have to do to respond to talking about Marianne Williamson could be you're organizing in your local district to get a DSA candidate elected, or putting your energy towards that, instead of something that's going to make, it's nothing.
I think there's value in it as far as we can explain this idea again. Because the idea of voting never gets old. It comes up every cycle. L.A. accent. Why did Kevin's have to catch a stray? I'm sorry about that. Rob from San Francisco. Happy Hump Day, MR crew. Today's a special day for two reasons. It's my birthday and my first day as a member. Can I please get a shofar? I've been tuning in for nearly a decade.
Wow.
Love the work you do. Wishing you a prosperous 2024. Left is best. Thank you very much for the support and happy birthday. Bending Sinister. Seeing the IDF use the U.S. War on Terror blueprint is the horrifying version of that old drug PSA. I learned it from watching you. Isaac of...
look at Netanyahu on 9/11 being this is actually great for us because we can help. They'll buy into our terminology and how to deal with these things.
Isaac Awesome OV. I just downloaded the updated app and am listening live to my brand new membership gifted from my wonderful wife, Jetty. Jetty, can you please give her a shofar for giving me my favorite holiday gift? Love you all. Left is best. This is for you, Jetty. Great taste in gifting. Very easy to gift via the app, ladies and gentlemen. And the app is free, of course. Nola Birdwatcher, GLC Door, had Alex Jones on a show. Jimmy was so pathetic. At one point, he even said Alex was so strong that he could totally beat him up. Jimmy then continued to let Jones spew lies and nonsense on his platform. Happy New Year, left is best.
Wow.
God.
Why was he emasculating himself voluntarily?
So resent that tomorrow is Thursday and you guys are going to cover that.
Yeah.
Jaywalking last night, TYT had a weird thing happen during the main show. They couldn't switch cameras or even go to break. You may want to compare notes. Travis from Pittsburgh. We're designed not to switch cameras or to go to break.
Yes.
Travis from Pittsburgh. Hey, Pittsburgh has really cleaned up our river runoff. The two-headed fish taste fine. The devil. I'm not a politically okay. We already did that. The name Tim is not a European or white name. It's actually a Middle Eastern Greek name. The only reason it has cultural correlation with Europeans is that Europe's weak white people were conquered by the brown Abraham faith. Bobby Digital. Rather have Disney trying to trans my kids than Michael Knowles who wants to F them. Ooh.
Oh, Jesus.
Texas leftist. There's already a white supremacist video game that was announced called Infestation 88 that has a zombie Mickey Mouse, and the devs has a bunch of dog whistles on their websites along with 88 in the name. So there you go, Knowles. Is he doing an ad read? All right, 3 more. Steamboat's Willie. Gotta love the creativity of beloved things entering the public domain. 6 axe handles is how I describe the length of the dip in Vivek's poll. Listening to Tim Pool speak makes my brain melt like a marshmallow in cocoa. Eric in Poland. As a Jets fan, F. Aaron Rodgers. He made us sign Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, and Dalvin Cook, and those guys were all scrubs.
Don't forget
and
about
worst
your
of all,
offensive coordinator.
He agreed with the Jets' Republican owner to let Zach Wilson continue to be our backup QB.
Well, that's... If you think Zach Wilson is the problem with this team, I'm sorry, you're not really paying much attention. But
whoa, shots fired.
How did the other quarterbacks that came in play? But yes, it is funny to me that Woody Johnson, the heir to the Johnson & Johnson fortune, signs that anti-vaxxers checks.
Matthew of Philadelphia just got done unexpectedly bawling my eyes out during a call with a staffer at Fetterman's office. When I told them about my toddler's screams when he got stitches in his hand without numbing agent, they had mistimed it. And how the screams of 1,000 Palestinian kids in Gaza getting amputations without anesthesia is unbearable. Call your reps and at least force their staff to hear the details of the suffering. I think people would be surprised at what these people are not aware of.
Bubbles.
Totally. I mean, remember Amanpour was like completely shocked, even though she's a foreign policy like correspondent for CNN, maybe the most famous one in the country. She didn't even know that Israel had built those tunnels under Al-Shifa, and we'd known that for weeks.
Yep. Final IM of the day. And I believe the first IM that we've read anyways from Bullprog in 2024. Don't put all your political eggs in the presidential basket.
Thank you.
Wiser words were never said. Matt, great job today. Emma, great job today. Bradley, great job this morning. Like obsessively texting and emailing all the details before he went off on his honeymoon. I had to all caps tell him, go on your honeymoon. But
That's
great
sweet.
job. Nevertheless, have fun. And folks, we will see you tomorrow.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the lie bar. Finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I Guess somehow I lost my drive.